am on live, right? There's Scheller, there's Sally. So click on that, and then that, and see what happens. Yep. Okay, so just confirm again, and same thing. Hi guys, can you hear me? They can't hear me yet, for some reason. Or I don't hear them. Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. Shannon, check your
I
hi
can hear
Sally.
you.
Okay, can
We,
you both check your moderator status and see if it worked this time, or?
it's working.
Oh, see, it's working. So we didn't do
It's
anything different.
it's working. It's just mine on your channel since you started. I've never been able to hit accept when somebody requests to come up.
Okay, well we're gonna check it tonight to see how it goes, because it might
Okay.
be that I need a driver
Okay.
that I can't get until we get the new system up and he goes with
Okay.
the VPN, because we're in China. So okay.
I know. I was just letting you know. I mean, everything else works other than that.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good.
So, yeah.
Okay, so I've got the record set. Let's get Tim up here. Do the same thing
Hey,
with
Lily.
him.
Hi, Joshua.
Okay, let's do that again. Try that one more time. Here.
Hi, Tim. We're working on getting you up.
Hey, Tim. Hey,
Hey, Dorothy.
Josh.
Hey, Shannon. If I didn't say
Should be
hi to
good.
you.
We'll see how it goes.
How you doing, Sally?
I'm
Okay.
good. How are you?
Good. Hi, Dorothy.
Hey, Dorothy.
Hey guys, can you hear me? Oh, let me turn my. I'm getting ready still.
You
Sorry.
got you got some grooving music going there, Tim. Hey.
Trying to keep my place chill here.
Yeah.
My mood nice and. All right.
So how's everybody doing?
So at my apartment, it's like the laundromat. It will like shut down at 7, so I had to like hurry and get my clothes out of there, and I like just made it.
Oh no. Well, that's good. Are they folded or still in the basket?
Oh no, they're just still in the basket. I just threw them in a room.
Okay.
They're on the bed, right?
Yeah.
Yep, you already know, Shannon. Dang. Yo, get out of my head, bro.
You'll go back there and all the cats will be sleeping on those nice warm clothes.
Yeah, exactly. Hi,
That's why they're
Annie,
not allowed in my room.
Lily,
Hey, Annie.
Josh, Dorothy.
Hi, Annie.
So tonight, guys,
Hey Annie, how you
we're
doing?
just gonna do like a sort of a conversation between the panel here. We're just sort of gonna talk back and forth and try to get you guys to know who we are a little bit better, and then we will take even your questions in the comments if anybody wants to come up afterwards and talk. And ask us questions about us, or even just tell us about yourself and your journey, your testimonial if you want. It's just to just meet us, just get to know us better, just so that because we are a family here, and it's better to know your family, a little bit more intimately, and we'll see how things go. So we're gonna let Tim, just sort of ask questions. Shannon's gonna ask Tim some questions, and we'll just see how things go, just like as if we're in our Discord chat.
Yeah, I guess I'll start
Okay.
with Shannon. Can you guys still hear? Wow. Sorry.
Yes, we
Hold
can hear
on.
you.
My bad. No, my freaking cat just made a mess.
Oh no. Do you want to go clean it up?
Uh,
Take a few minutes. Go
just
to
a
We're
mess. It'll be
okay.
fine. Like she jumped off the.
Hi,
Okay,
Natalie.
I'll be right back. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead. Hi, Marie. Yeah. Oh, by the way, guys, that one question that was on the sheet that I sent you, it said Luke 9:56.
Yes.
It doesn't even like I don't I read it in several different Bibles and it doesn't even say the Son of Man at all. So I'm not really sure. I think he might just have his whichever scripture it is off.
He might
So
have the wrong verse.
right, right. So
Well,
I
I think
looked it up. He's got the right verse.
oh well, mine doesn't say that.
A lot of,
I have
I know. A
two
lot of
Bibles in.
I looked it up.
What Bible did you see it in?
Yeah, I looked it up.
Online
I
or?
used Bible Hub,
Okay,
and I looked up the comparisons,
okay,
and a lot of them, like the King James version, has it, and a lot of them have it depending on what manuscript they drew off of. But the
okay.
older manuscripts don't have it.
Okay, because the NET doesn't
So,
have it, and the American
yeah,
Standard doesn't, or sorry, the English Standard doesn't have it. Um, so yeah, I was just
it
kind of
is in
confused.
the it's in the interlinear though,
Yeah,
which is interesting.
yeah, it's kind of, strange how you have to, you
but
real,
The net the
the thing
Net
is
Bible
that
has a note on it why it's not in there.
okay, I haven't read that, so I have to look it up.
If you look it up online, yeah.
Jesus would never refer to himself in the third person. So it was probably a warning, you know,
Yeah,
about the Christ, calling him the Son of Man, because Jesus Barabbas is not the Son of Man. Jesus Christ is the Son of Man. So it was probably a warning, because
right.
I can't imagine our Father referring to himself in the third person.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Are you back, Tim?
I agree, Annie, that I like using Bible Hub.
Yeah, Bible Hub is good.
Yeah, I forgot. I forgot. I already said hello to you, Annie. My bad. I meant to say hello to Natalie. Nat is here.
Yep.
All right. So you guys talking about the man? I mean, I've been literally trying to get all my errands done, so I didn't have to do anything this weekend.
Well,
And
that's good.
I didn't focus on much of the chat. I peeped in here and there. What happened with the Luke? What was it? Luke 9.
Yeah, Luke 9,
56.
56. He was just saying, or just asking, it must be a redaction where Jesus says the Son of Man. I wonder what it says in the Greek. But I looked in two different Bibles that, I just looked at them. One is the English Standard and the other is a net. And I didn't see it, but Shannon did see a comment in the net saying why it's not in there. And then he looked on Bible Hub and a couple other places, I think, Shannon? And you found it in there, so.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would really refer to themselves in the third person, let alone just Jesus.
Hmm.
I just think it's like not really a common practice. Yeah.
Yeah.
9:56.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. I just was wondering, but I wanted to start with Shannon. I know Shannon. I guess I won't really spoil it for any new listeners, but what's your testimony like? How did you get to where you are here today? I know you started with the Jehovah's Witness, right? Or I don't know if you started there, but
Yeah,
you were there before you got here.
I was born into it. My father, who I didn't know, he was a baptized Jehovah's Witness. I come from like 5 generations of Jehovah's Witnesses, and I guess I'm 5th generation. Um, and he killed himself when I was like 6 months old, so I never knew him. My mother, she was raised around it, but she didn't. Her parents, my grandparents, were both Jehovah's Witnesses, but she never did get baptized. But she didn't believe anything else. She didn't go to any other churches. And she got baptized in 1971, when I was 10 years old. And she stuck with it till she died in 1972. So she died when I was 11. And I had an older brother. He died in 1972 as well. He never did get baptized. He had a severe drug problem and emotional problems, I think from my father killing himself or unaliving himself, and so he never got baptized, but he totally believed it, and he told all his friends that he hung out with, which were all doing the same kind of things he was doing, putting um, chemicals in his body and whatnot. And I don't know how many, probably I think three or four of them um, ended up getting baptized. So he was pretty into it, even though he never did. He just said he couldn't um, follow the rules um, because of the way his life went. So um, yeah. So when my mom died, I became an orphan, and she wanted me to go live with my uncle, uh, who had moved to Kentucky. So I had to go live with him because he was a Jehovah's Witness. And she wanted me to have a father figure who was going to raise me right as a Jehovah's Witness. And he was an abusive, I think he was an alcoholic. I don't know. He drank a lot. And he was very abusive physically, mentally, verbally. Um, so I lived with him for till I turned 16. We had left Kentucky um, because the only way we could make money was grow tobacco. And in 1973, the Watchtower came out with an article saying you can't have anything to do with tobacco. You can't own a tobacco store. You can't sell it, grow it. You can't smoke it or any of that, or you'll get disfellowshipped, which means you'll get shunned by everybody in the organization. So he sold the property and we moved to Washington. And I started looking into the laws of Washington on how soon I could get out of there. And I could emancipate myself when I was 16. And I got the gumption up to tell him I was moving out. That was pretty intense. We were crab fishermen, and he was working in the crab shack, we called it. He was building crab pots. They weigh about 120 pounds, and you got big rebars that you weld in the bottom of it to hold it, take it down to the bottom of the ocean. And I, I I went in there, and before I said anything, I looked around for a weapon. I was like, man, I don't know what he's going to do. He's capable of anything. And I saw what I could use. It was a big piece of rebar, and I just kept it by me just in case. I didn't have it in my hand, and I told him I was moving out, and he didn't lose it like I thought he would. Um, and I was going to move in with my English teacher,
I'm sorry, Shannon. And who was
and
this guy again to you?
he was my uncle from my mother's side.
Got you.
Yeah.
I'm still
So
listening. I'm sorry.
yeah, it ends up what happened was I didn't move in with my teacher. He came and talked to them. They threatened him, told him they would have his job because my aunt worked at this school as well. She was a bus driver, and he got scared. So they came up with a plan to let me go live with my other aunt and uncle in California, where I grew up. That's where I'm from. And that's what I always wanted. I never wanted to leave California when my mom died. I wanted to live with my Aunt Kathy. But they wouldn't let me. And they said it was my mom's wishes to go to my uncle's. So that's what I did. I was only 11 and I didn't have much say. But as I got older, I got braver and I got tired of the beatings and all the abuse. So I ended
Well,
up going back there to
where were your?
California.
Sorry, I was gonna ask you like early in your. You said you were 11 and at that time. What was your like belief system at that time? I know you're just a kid, but
I totally believed what I had been taught. I was totally indoctrinated, and
okay, so you were already into the Jehovah's, like they was already putting that into you.
yeah, I didn't
Okay,
know anything else. Yeah, I had been to another church in my little hometown one time. My mom let me go, and I remembered that. but I only got to go to two churches growing up when my mom was still alive, and I only went one time at each church. Other than that, it was going to the Kingdom Hall. You know, even when my mom, she wasn't doing it herself, I would go with my grandma or another family member. All of my family are Jehovah's Witnesses. Uh, Almost all of them. Some are now atheists and some are Christians, but those five generations of family, almost all of them are Jehovah's Witnesses. So either they got indoctrinated and never got baptized, or they did get baptized. Either way, they're still controlled by the family because um, if you refute your beliefs with them, they call you an apostate, and you're the worst. You can leave, like get caught smoking or sleeping around or something like that, and get removed. They used to call it disfellowshipping. Now they just make an announcement that so and so is no longer a Jehovah's Witness. It means so and so has been disfellowshipped. And they used to, back in the day, like in the 70s, they would say so and so has been disfellowshipped for fornication or for smoking. They quit doing that. And now they don't do that, but usually when they announce it, the next week they give a talk from the stage about the dangers of whatever. They don't say the person's name, but they pretty much talk about what you did without saying your name. So everybody knows, and everybody knows, do not talk to him.
Did that sit
Do not hang out with
right?
him. Do not eat
Did
with
that sit
him.
right with you?
I always had a hard time with it because I lost a lot of good friends that way. You know, I was in it. I got baptized in 1981, and I was in it all the way up until 2022. Um, and I woke up during the doink doink, as what's his name always says on his channel. Um, and they had shut down going to the Kingdom Hall. They shut down going door to door because of the pandemic. And you just sat at home and looked on the internet, and you had to watch JW Broadcasting every month, and that's all you could do, and that got old. So I started thinking about everything and what was happening and wondering what's going on, and I just started doing some research on the online and looking into it. Um, and that was the beginning of my journey, so to speak. I realized it was a cult, and I realized that I had to get out of here. And I was married. I'd been married I was married twice. Once to somebody who was not uh, a baptized believer, but she was raised in it, so she was totally indoctrinated. And then after that marriage failed in '96, I got married again on 01/01/01, and I married somebody who was a new convert. She had been raised a Mormon, and she got converted to Jehovah's Witnesses, and I met her at the Kingdom Hall, and I married her. We didn't have any children together, but we were together for 22 years. And I tried to wake her up, and it didn't go well, to say the least.
When you say you tried to wake her up, because you said you was a Jehovah's Witness when you met her. So while you were
Hmm.
with her is when you came out of Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah, I woke up during the pandemic, and I
And you
tried to
guys
tell
you guys
her.
were already together at that point during the pandemic.
Yeah,
For
we'd
how
been
long?
together. We I got married in 2000, January 1st, 2001, and uh, I woke up somewhere in 2021, I think. Um,
So just
or 2020. I
months
can't remember
after
now.
you married her, you started waking up to the truth.
No, no, no.
20 years.
Um, we had been
1 year
married
after.
for 20 years, and then I woke up.
Oh, wow.
What's that?
Okay. So you've been married 20 years and then you woke
So
up.
I tried to wake up. Yeah, I'd been married for over 20 years, and I loved her dearly, and I didn't want her to go down with this cult. And I tried to lovingly just plant seeds, and she wasn't having it. And she immediately went and ran to the elders, which I was an elder. I had been an elder for like, I don't know, 15 years.
Uh-oh.
And, you know, I had lots of privileges with that organization. And I would go out and give uh, discourses in different kingdom halls in the area and stuff like that. So I was totally into it. They call it, when you get out of Jehovah's Witnesses, um, the people that are out of it, they call it, when you're in it and totally believe it, they call you a PME, which means physically in, mentally in. And I became a PIMQ, which is physically in, mentally questioning. So I started mentally questioning everything, and I would share my questions with my physically in, mentally in wife, and she wasn't having any of it. I couldn't get her to become a questioning person. And um, basically, she turned me in, and she left me. She just moved out, didn't tell me where she was going. She just left. She went and stayed with a friend. And I didn't know where she
Wow.
was. So I had, by that time, I had become, uh, I had prayed to Jesus, which you're not supposed to do when you're a Jehovah's Witness. You pray to Jehovah,
Wow.
Yahweh. And I prayed to Jesus, and I asked him for the truth. I just got to know. And I woke up, I went to bed. I woke up from a dead sleep, just crying and saying, I'm in a cult. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you for telling me I'm in a cult. I didn't hear voices. I just woke up from a dead sleep and realized I was in a cult. It was like
Yeah.
it was from within.
Yeah.
I started crying, and I was sitting up in my bed, and I had my hands outreached, and I was just crying out to Jesus. And my wife was sleeping in the other end of the house. She wouldn't even sleep with me in my bed anymore. And I woke her up. I was crying so loud, and she came in there and was, Shannon, what are you doing? And I didn't even hear her, and she kept screaming at me, and I finally realized she was in there, and I said, what? And she says, who are you praying to? I said, I'm
Oh
praying to
my.
God. And
Oh
she goes,
my. Wow.
I said, I'm praying to God. And she goes, I heard you praying to Jesus. And I just didn't know what to say. And I said, yeah. And she goes, you know, we don't pray to Jesus. Jesus is the Archangel Michael. We don't pray to angels.
Oh,
You only
wow.
pray.
They think Jesus is Archangel Michael?
Yeah.
Oh,
And,
wow. I didn't know that.
and she goes, if you ever do that again, I will tell the elders and you'll get disfellowship, which
Wow.
means shunned.
Yeah.
And promise me you won't do that. And I said, okay, I promise. Of course, I didn't pray out loud like that anymore. And I kept praying, but it was really hard. So I secretly started trying to get her to question our beliefs and her beliefs, and she didn't like it. She didn't want anything to do with it, so she finally left me.
That's
It
sad.
took about 2 months for her to get to that point, and I didn't know what to do. I I was a Christian now, and I thought, well, and I had been talking to somebody who was a Seventh Day Adventist, my neighbor, and he kind of influenced me to follow the Sabbath and do the bread and the wine. So I was going to go do that it was on a Saturday. I was on my own now, but she had left me. I was still at home, and I went to a park, state park in Washington, and I bought um, a little box of wine, and I bought I brought water and wheat, and I mixed my own unleavened bread, and I cooked it on a Mister Heater that I had, and I had bread and wine. And I celebrated the Passover, um, and then I went for a walk, and it got dark, and I thought, well, I'll just sleep in my car tonight. I'm going to go for a walk. So I went for a walk, and I got lost in the woods in Washington at this state park in Port Angeles, right by the ocean. And I got lost in the woods, and I was in the woods for hours. I couldn't find my way out of there. And finally, I could see light through the trees, and I thought, oh, there's probably a clear cut because I used to elk hunt, bow hunt, and I was familiar with the woods. And I thought, if I just walk towards those trees and I see where the light is, I'll come to a clear cut. And so I kept walking, and I realized, oh, there's the light. I can see the clear cut. And it was low tide, so I couldn't really hear the ocean. And I took my last step off of a log, and that's the last thing I remember. Apparently, I had to get airlifted to the hospital in Seattle the next day because I had fallen 50 feet, and I don't remember any of it. I have no recollection of it. The paramedics that when I came to at the hospital, they told me that I had been talking to people all day long. So that happened early in the morning, and I was there all day. I don't remember any of it. I had a big blood spot on my brain, they told me, and
Wow.
they didn't know how I was even alive. They said, "Did you try to kill yourself?" And I said, "No, not at all. I was lost in the woods." And I explained what happened. Then my wife, somehow they got a hold of my wife, and she showed up, and she was really upset with me. And she goes, "What are you going to do now?" And I said, "Well, they told me I got to be in here for a month, and then I got to come home, and I was hoping you would come back and take care of me." And she says, "No, I'm not coming back. I've left you." And I said, "Well, who's taking care of the animals at home?" We had ducks, and we had guinea pigs, and a cat, an outdoor cat, and a dog. And she goes, "Well, I have the dog, but everything else is at home, and nobody's taking care of them." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, they're all going to die." And she goes, "Oh, well, it's your fault." And she left. She says, "I love you." She kissed me on my forehead. And that was the last time she talked to me. So she left, and I panicked, and I told the nurses, "I got to go. I got to go home." I was 3.5 hours away by car, and they did not want to release me, but I demanded it because I was afraid all my animals were going to die. So they gave me a ride home in a taxi, and I got there, and everybody was fine, and I took care of them for 3 days. It was 2 or 3 days with this huge head injury. The doctor said, "Don't lay down and sleep or you'll probably die because you've got brain swelling and whatnot."
Wow. Wow.
So I was there for 2 days, 3 days. And then at night, around midnight, I hear a knock at the door, and it was the sheriff. My wife had gone to the a court and lied to a judge and said she was afraid for her life and that she needed a restraining order. And the only reason she did that is because that's what my first wife did to me, to get rid of me, because she didn't want me in her life anymore. And I wouldn't leave because I didn't have grounds to leave. There's no grounds to leave your wife unless, it's fornication or something like that. And I didn't have those grounds. So she, uh, she went and did that. And I told my new wife about it. And she never forgot that for 20 years. And she used that little trick against me. I loved her so much. And I never, ever said one word to her, never even called her the B word, never raised my hand to her, nothing like that. But she told the judge she was afraid I was going to shoot her with my bow.
Wow.
Wow.
Because she's the one that asked me to go out and hunt for elk meat, for clean meat, grass fed, something clean meat. And so I took up hunting for her. And so then she used that against me. That's how I ended up being homeless. After that, I was homeless. They threw
Wow.
me out of my own
It's
house.
horrible, Shannon.
Father kept you alive through that, though. Most
Yeah.
definitely. You were under his protection. I've never heard of somebody that, could take that kind of fall and have that kind of injury and live through it if it wasn't, Father's hands on you, keeping you
Absolutely,
here.
yeah.
Yeah. And the good news is, when I got to California, I did, and I finally got state insurance. I had them check out um, my injury, and all of the swelling was gone. The 2-inch blood spot on my brain was gone. Um, it's like I was back to normal, you know.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, I I had totally changed the way I live, um, and I started looking into health and whatnot. I was doing cold water immersion. I read a book by um, uh, something Hoff. I can't remember his name now. Wes Hoff or something. No, not that guy. Another guy. Wim Hof. He's from Poland or
I've heard of
something.
him, yeah. I've seen his
Yeah,
videos and stuff, yeah.
yeah. I started doing that, and you know what? It really helped. It really did help me.
Mhm.
Um, so I ended up moving to my half brother's house in California. He's an ex Jehovah's Witness, and he said he would help me. Um, so I was there, and while I was there, I was just digging into everything. I was like, okay, well, if Jehovah is fake and my whole life has been a big lie, then I'm not afraid of anything. I'm going to look into everything. And I started looking into everything except Satanism. I wasn't interested in that at all. Um, I was looking into everything Jesus, and I was a Christian. So um, Hillsong Church, the original one, is in Redding, California, and I was in Red Bluff, California. And it's only a little 20, 30-minute drive away. I started watching their videos on TV, and I got wrapped up into that for a while. And my brother, he's my half brother. When my dad died, my mom had an affair, and she gave him up for adoption. And my aunt, Kathy, picked him up at the hospital, and she raised him as her own child. And it was a big secret in our whole family that everybody knew except me and my half brother.
Wow.
I thought he was my cousin. My whole life, I thought he was my cousin. Turns out we had the same mother.
Wow.
Anyway, he told me, well, if you think you just got out of a cult, if you join that place, you're going to be joining another cult. You need to look into it. So I did. And I realized, oh yeah, these guys are not good. So I stayed away from Hillsong. I was all ready to go one Sunday, but I did some research and then I called that off. I even went and got my beard trimmed at a local barber shop, and I was telling him my story, and I was very emotional at the time, and I couldn't stop from crying when I was talking to him about it. And he said, I know exactly what you need. And he gave me a card, and it was to Hillsong, to go there. So I even thought that was the right thing to do, because it was like, oh, this is from heaven, this is a sign. And but I didn't do it. I instead went to a different church that wasn't part of that. And that kept me going for a while. And then things fell through with my half brother, and I was on the road again, and I went back to my hometown. That didn't work out. I got involved with the church there. I was homeless, living in my car, and I went to the park in town where my drunk dad used to go hang out. It's called Andrews Park. And I went there, and there was no homeless people. I'm like, where are all the homeless people out? Well, Vacaville had already gotten rid of them all. They railroaded them out of town. So here I am, the only homeless guy in town. and here come the police, and they asked me what I was doing, and I was cleaning up the whole park, throwing everything away, just cleaning up everything. And I told them what I was doing, so they were cool with that. The next day, I'm doing my same thing, cleaning up in whatnot, and this preacher, I heard a megaphone, and so I followed the voice, and this preacher had a bunch of people from his church, and they were giving out coffee and sandwiches from McDonald's. So I went over there and got some coffee and whatnot. I was hungry and thirsty and cold, and he said, "We're healing people, and somebody want to get healed?" And this old guy who couldn't hardly walk, they tried to heal him, and he still couldn't walk. And I said, "I want to be healed. I have the faith. I want to be healed." So they put their hands on me, and I told them what my health problems were, and they prayed that they would get fixed. And they asked me, "How do you feel?" And I said, I feel the same. The problems I have, I didn't even know I had them, but I was told by a doctor. And they said, "Well, we're having a big concert at our church tonight." It was a mega church. I didn't know that. And we're going to have a rap rock concert. And I was like, "Oh, that's cool. I like rap rock. But it's Christian rap rock. I don't know what that is, but I'm going to come check it out." So I went there, and I was really getting into it. I'm up the front of the stage, just rocking out and moving all over the place. And that preacher came up to me and he said, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." And I said, "Why?" And he goes, "Because the way you're moving around, that is not the Holy Spirit. That's the spirit of the devil. You've got a devil in you. You need to go." And I looked at him and I said, "Are you crazy? What are you talking about?" He goes, "I'm serious. You got to leave. I want you to leave now." There was like 1,000 people there, and I was right in the front. And I said, he even had me up on stage, wanting me to tell everybody my experience, and I did that. And then we got down, and I was rocking out to the music, and then he asked me to leave, and I didn't want to leave. So they said, "If you don't leave, we're going to have to escort you out of here and call the police." I said, "Do what you got to do." So they escorted me out of there. They had to carry me out, and they called the police, and I ended up getting thrown in jail overnight. And that was a terrible experience. I didn't have any shoes. I was only wearing shorts and a t-shirt. And that jail cell was the drunk tank is where they put me. That place was filthy. No toilet paper. The toilet didn't even flush. The floor was filthy. They wouldn't give me a blanket. They wouldn't give me a pillow. I was freezing. They had the air conditioner on. And I got really sick. And they let me loose the next day. They told me they were going to give me a ride back to my car and my cat. And I said, "Okay, what do I got to do?" And they said, "Sign these papers, and then we're going to give you a ride home. Just go right through this door." So I went through the door, and I was outside. And I turned around. I said, "Where's my ride?" And he goes, "Have a nice day." And he closed the door on me. Left me out in the springtime. It was freezing, and I had to walk 5 miles. And I finally got to a J.C. Penney, and my phone didn't have any service, so I didn't put it together that I could call 911 and still get service, emergency service. So I went to J.C. Penney, and they gave me some clothes and socks. They felt sorry for me, and I was walking out of there, and I go, "What am I going to do tonight? I'm going to freeze." And I thought, "Oh, I know what I got to do. I can call 911." A little voice inside of me told me I could do this. So I did it, and the ambulance came and they took me to the hospital and told me that I had a heart attack, that I had an aneurysm on my heart, and that I had a urinary tract infection so bad that they had to give me intravenous antibiotics. And when they came into the room, they would dress up in gowns and whatnot. And then when they left the room, they would throw them all away. That's how afraid they were I was going to infect the whole ward. I don't remember what the infection was, what bug it was, but the drug they gave me was called ertapenem. I remember that. And they said it was super powerful and that I had to be on it for like 7 days. So I went through all that, and I got out of there, and I got back to my car, and everything was stolen. I had $20,000 worth of musical equipment and cameras and my cat, and they were all gone. Everything was gone. My electric bike, everything. It just left junk. So I just said, I got to get out of this town. This town's trying to kill me. And I got my car running. I found out my cat was at the SPCA. I went and got him. I went to a grocery store. I made a little cardboard sign, and I sat there with my cat and told him I needed money for gas to get out of town. And it helped that I had a cat. I collected like $60 in an hour just before the store closed. And I made it to Santa Cruz on that money. And that's where my journey really got crazy. I don't want to take up everybody's time. I don't
No, you're
really
not
know
taking.
how.
No, it's good. We need to all know how things are. It's hard to tell your whole story. It really is.
Yeah.
You're doing well, I think.
Well, I got to Santa Cruz. I'm homeless. I'm living in my car. I got my cat, and I wanted to be by the ocean because I used to be a crab fisherman, and I just wanted to be by the ocean, and I wanted to be able to do that cold water immersion in the ocean. So I started doing that every day, cold water immersion in the ocean, and sleeping in my car. And by then I had food stamp EBT cards, so I could get some food. And then I got a job at Safeway, so I was living in my car, working at Safeway, living with my cat, and just trying to stay out of trouble. But they were really cracking down on people living on the street in cars in Santa Cruz. So I had to keep moving around. And I had earned enough money from my job that I knew about a little motorhome in my hometown. It was a little Toyota motorhome. And she told me she'd sell it to me for $1,000. And that was an awesome deal. It
Hmm.
only had like, I don't know, 15,000 miles on it. But it had been sitting out for years. It was in 1980. And so I got enough money to go there, and I got a friend from the street who had a license to go with me, and I got that thing running. I gave her $800, so because I had to spend a couple $100 to get it running, and she was fine with that. And I got it running, and I got it back to Santa Cruz. So I was going to redo it and take that motorhome to like the coast, the eastern seaboard somewhere. I wanted to be like in South Carolina or Georgia or someplace like that on that coast. Maybe get a job on a shrimp boat or something. I didn't know. I used to be a shrimp fisherman too, so I thought, yeah, I'll do that. And it's in the Bible Belt. There's lots of Christians there, and I was still Christian, and that didn't work out too well. I ended up getting that taken away by the police, and then they took my car, and I got thrown in jail again. And I was just having a hard time in that town. So I got thrown in jail for like 8.5 months, and they charged me with a felony. After I got in jail, they trumped up the felony charge for intent to terrorize. So I had a terrorism threat because I told somebody I was gonna, if they didn't leave me alone. And it turned out he worked for the police department. He was called a downtown ambassador.
Wow.
They're kind of like undercover
Almost
cops. I didn't.
entrapment. Almost an entrapment kind of
Yeah,
situation. Yeah.
yeah. So I just got out. I just completed that whole thing to get that charge dropped. It's all dropped now. It's all erased. The record's sealed. All that's gone now. Um, so I, when I got out of jail, I had to go into a program. That was the only way I could get out of this whole thing. Is I had to go to a program and do everything they said, and then they would drop. If I could prove myself and stay out of trouble, then they would drop all the charges after like 2 years. So I did all that. I got out of the program. They put me in a halfway house. Then I could leave and go where I wanted. And I had watched TV at this halfway house. I would watch the Jesus Revolution. It was all about how the Calvary Church got started and whatnot. And so I thought, hey, I'll go and see if there's a Calvary Church in town. And there was. So I just showed up one day, and they were very nice. And I come in, looking like a street person. Um, and they were very loving. And I told them I was there because, I'd watched that Jesus Revolution movie, and, I felt like maybe this would be a good place to come. So they took me in, and they were very nice to me. And they even found a place for me to live outside of this halfway house. It was like $300 a month cheaper than what I would have to be paying for that place. Getting your own room in Santa Cruz on the coast for $600 a month is like unheard of. You just can't find anything like that. This place is very expensive. So I moved in there. The thing was I had to live with somebody that was from the church, and I was still on my journey, and I was looking around, and I realized who Yahweh was. Then it all made sense to me. No wonder I got my butt kicked so hard when I left Jehovah's Witnesses, because I ticked off Yahweh, and that all makes sense. And I had fallen into, before I had gone to jail, I had fallen into this other cult, basically. The guy's name's Tyler Doka, and he thinks he's Jesus Christ in the flesh.
Wow.
Yeah. He also taught that Jesus in the first century was not a man; it was a woman.
Oh, that's something.
So I was on
That's
that
new. I've
train
never
for a
heard that
while.
before.
Yeah, I was on that train for a while, but what it taught me was he was a King James only guy, and he taught me that the devil, or he taught me that the snake in the garden didn't lie. That he told the truth, that you wouldn't die the very day you ate of it. And what he was teaching is that was Jesus, that the snake was Jesus. So I was confused about that, but he also taught that there was two Jesus in the Bible. This woman Jesus, and then there was another Jesus, and he was the second coming of Jesus. So I kind of had that in my head, and I'm doing my research, and I come across Bobby Collier and his Yahweh teachings, and I'm like, yeah. But then I started listening. I found Scriptural Truth Channel. I started listening to Galanan's teachings, and then I'm like, oh, wow, this makes so much sense. This is crazy. This is the truth. And I dropped Bobby Collier because I had a problem with Paul anyway, the so-called apostle, and I was hearing the things that were making sense to me, and it all started making more and more sense. So I went back to church at Calvary Chapel, and they were singing a song to Yahweh. Yahweh this, Yahweh Sabaoth, blah, blah, blah. And I just like, oh my goodness, I can't be here anymore. So I went out and talked to the pastor who had taken me in. I was like his little acolyte, or whatever you want, his little, he was going to work with me. He really was impressed with me. And when I told him that, they're worshiping that Yahweh is the devil, that didn't go well.
I can't
And
imagine.
I hadn't even got to the two Jesus part in Kalanan's, what she had been sharing. I hadn't even got there yet. So I just went back home and quit going to church and just threw myself into it, studying it. And then the lives started up, and I started showing up for the lives. And that's how I got where I'm at here, is basically that's how I got here.
That's quite the story, Shannon. That's wild. You went
Yeah, I
through
wish I
was,
was there to see that pastor react.
I know. I was
yeah.
just thinking the same thing. I would have loved to have been in that room.
You know what?
Yeah.
You know what? He didn't react like you think he would. He was very loving, and he was just like, no, you're just confused, Shannon. You're just confused. And You know, just keep praying to the Lord that He'll give you the truth. And I said, I've been doing that. I've been asking for nothing but the truth. No
Mm-hmm.
matter how hard it is, I want to know the truth. And this is what I've learned. And, and he's like, well, I'll see you next Sunday. And I just walked off. I didn't even say, no, you won't, or yeah, I'll come back, or none of that. I just never went back.
Never look back. Truth,
Yeah.
truth
No.
rings. Truth rings pretty clear, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah,
So
Once you find it,
definitely.
it sure does,
that's
doesn't
right.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Why
sure.
would
But
we
when I
ask a
was
liar for truth? You know.
Hmm.
when I was in that program, I met a lot of people that came off the street. All of them were off the street, and I got involved in Christ consciousness. I got involved
Oh
in
yeah.
meditating to Metatron, all kinds of crap. Just I was just getting hammered from all sides with all kinds of stuff. The only thing I didn't get involved in because there was nobody there was Hebrew roots.
You didn't get involved with those. No, I did. Mhm. I
Yeah,
got
I did
yeah
not.
yeah.
But that's my story.
It's
Now I'm
pretty
living out here in the middle of nowhere and enjoying it.
yeah. No, you're doing well, and I believe you're on the right path.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Look how far you've come, just in a couple short years.
Yeah, I know. I think of that. I don't listen to uh, the Grateful Dead anymore, but they've got that one song where the chorus is "What a long, strange trip it's been,"
Yeah.
and I think about that every once in a while. It's been a long, strange trip, but it's been a good. I don't regret anything. I don't regret any of the things that happened to me.
No,
I
that's how
don't.
I feel
I
about
don't.
my life too, Shannon, because of the stuff that I've
Yeah,
learned.
Yeah. I mean,
exactly.
if any of us haven't gone through the stuff that we'd all been through, we wouldn't be here.
That's right.
So it's
Exactly.
it's but I think it's really cool to share our testimonies because all of us come from. We have similarities, but such vast differences at the same time. When we've all had challenges and things to
Yeah.
overcome, different things, but it's just kind of cool how we've all come together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I do want to say, in case any of my old friends that won't talk to me anymore or family, if they ever come across this, I want to tell them that I love them all.
All your family and friends and people that have left your life, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I love them all, and I have no animosity towards any of them. They're we all have been deceived at one point in our life. They're all deceived.
Yeah.
Um, the whole world's deceived. Satan has done an awesome job of deceiving everyone.
He certainly
Um,
has.
and and I don't have any animosity towards any of them. I forgive them all, and I hope that they forgive me for the things I did. I mean, I was a Jehovah's Witness for 14 years. I disfellowshipped people
Yeah.
because I was misled. I screwed up people's lives,
Yep. I
and
hear you. I hear you there.
and if I could find them, I would tell them I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll hear it.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
so anyway,
well, that's a good testimony, Shannon, and you know, I hope everybody can understand that we've all been through stuff, and the things that we do on here, like just to come on and do the things that we do to try to show people the truth is from our hearts because we're all here for the right reasons. So anyway, Shannon, you
well,
can.
thank you for
Oh,
listening.
yeah, for sure. And Shannon, you or Tim, you can go on with your next guest, your next.
Well, I did have two quick questions.
Sure. Yep. Go ahead.
Like, yeah, quick answers to quick questions. So I was just gonna ask, what's the significance of baptism in the Jehovah's Witness thing? Like, from their perspective.
They used to teach that if you didn't get baptized, When Armageddon came, you would die and you would cease to exist. If you did get baptized and you stuck with it, when Armageddon came, you would live through it, um, along with all the other baptized Jehovah's Witnesses. There used to be like 8.5 million. I don't know how many there are now. A lot less. A lot of them have left. But everybody else in the world would be unalived and never come back, and we would get to um, turn the whole world into a paradise on here on earth. That's the significance of getting baptized. You lose out on that hope if you don't get baptized.
Yeah.
Now they're kind of changing their tune because they've lost so many followers, and um, they've disfellowshipped so many people, and so many people have just walked away from it. They want them back because
Yeah, they
it's
getting
not.
desperate.
They're desperate because it's actually it's a money making thing. They're a huge real estate conglomerate. They
Oh
own a
wow, I didn't
lot,
know that. I didn't know that.
ton.
Wow.
They owned a lot of buildings in New York and Brooklyn, and they
Oh wow.
sold them all, and they moved to upstate New York, and they're building a huge compound there.
Oh wow, I
And the
did not
main
know
thing
that.
is a huge movie studio to make movies. And they've been making movies since they made one of the first movies ever made called the Photodrama Creation in like 19, I don't know, in the 1914, 15 era. And it had moving pictures and it had voiceover in it. It had sound in it. So they were one of the first to do that. So they're all part of the Hollywood, all of that stuff. You know what I'm saying?
That's crazy. I did not know that about them. I didn't realize. I knew that there was a big deal. Like it was a big group, but I didn't realize they had, real estate and that they were doing movies at all.
I didn't
Yeah,
either.
and the guy that founded it, Charles Taze Russell, was a Freemason.
Oh
And
wow.
his when
Well, I
he
suppose they all are
died,
really in there somewhere.
yeah, they are.
Yeah.
If you screenshot, I don't know if they're doing it anymore since it's come out, but if you screenshot jw.org when they're doing their monthly broadcast, you can see the Masonic rings on their fingers.
Wow.
Some of them you can flip it over so you can't see the compass and whatever it is, level or
Yeah.
Do
compass.
they know that they're deceiving people? Like, do the higher ups know the truth and that they're deceiving people?
They absolutely, they absolutely
Oh,
do
I think
because
so.
they're all
Yeah.
Freemasons.
Yeah.
They do, but it's just like Masonic. It's
Man,
just like Freemasons.
what they're doing.
The top ones know everything, but the bottom ones they only know what they need to know.
And
And
they've been
you
in there
graduate
for
up till you get to your
generations.
30,
The
50.
ones, the families, like they're, I know because I was actually,
Yeah,
we did kind of try that for 7 months or something, but the people are good people and they think they're doing the right thing, just like any other Christian church that, they think they're doing the right thing. It's
It's
just
just
that,
that sometimes you believe the lie for so long that it becomes the truth, or you believe in it. If you
that's
tell,
it.
yeah.
when I started looking into it and I realized what the roots of it were and all the Masonic stuff and everything, I was just appalled. I really was. But that's where the indoctrination comes in because they tell you don't look at anything on the internet. Don't listen to anybody that talks bad about us.
Yeah.
And if you do, you'll be marked. And if you start talking about it, you'll get disfellowshipped and shunned, and your whole family will not talk to you, and all your friends that you had. That's all I had were friends that were witnesses
Yeah.
and family. And now none of them will talk to me
Yeah.
except for
Sounds like a narcissistic relationship.
Yeah,
It's
for
just
yeah.
sure,
all
right?
control. I just can't imagine living under that kind of control.
Anyway,
You know,
Ted, did you
Shannon.
have a question or was that it?
Well, I had one more quick question, and then I just had a couple points that I wanted that your story made me think of. I wrote them down so I didn't forget. Um, did your, I think you said your father was the one that, or I shouldn't say the word father. Did your dad was the one that abused you? You said.
No. Well, I don't know if he did or not. You know,
You say
there's
you
a
dealt with some kind of abuse
there's
between
a
ages
ton
1
of
and 11.
yeah, there's a ton of sexual abuse in Jehovah's Witnesses, and they keep it all quiet. But it's coming to the forefront. They've been busted in Norway. They've been busted in Washington, or not Washington, in the United States, in different states. It's coming to the. It's coming out. Um, they there's a huge problem, just like the big C, the Cath Catholics. I don't even know how to say it. I don't want to call anybody else out, but you know how they have a big problem in that organization with child abuse. Same thing in Jehovah's Witnesses, and I don't know if my dad unalived himself because that's what he was doing to his children or not. I'm too young, but all I know is I was like 4 years old, 5 years old, and I was very, very interested in girls and trying different things that I had no business knowing at that age. Where did I learn that? You know,
Hmm.
um, you you're supposed to be innocent at that age, and I was not innocent. I knew a lot of things, and um, yeah, there was a lot of that kind of stuff going on. But the one that physically abused me and mentally abused me was not my dad that I know of, because I was just 6 months old when he unalived, but my
Your
uncle when I
uncle,
was
okay.
11, when I was
I was just gonna
11.
ask if that affected your outlook on God being your father and your decision making. That's all I was gonna ask about that.
Yeah, yeah, it did because I didn't understand. If I have the truth, which they call Jehovah's Witnesses call it the truth, if I have the truth, then how could this be happening? If this organization is so loving, how can this be happening? And how can I come to the Kingdom Hall with bruises on my face, and they just look the other way and they don't even ask questions. Instead, they promote him in the organization. He became a ministerial servant, then he became an elder. You know, and they knew I was getting beat on the regular, and they just let it go. So that always caused me to question. I didn't understand it. I would pray to Jehovah and say, I don't understand why this is happening to me. What did I do?
You
Why
know
do
why,
I
Shannon?
deserve
You
what?
know, Jesus said why. He said the love of money is the root of all evil. And you see that people like they might have their YouTube channel up, like that one guy, and he'll go back to using a phrase that he don't even believe in really. He had to go back to using Yahweh just because his subscribers got upset with him. So you're gonna listen to
Yeah,
your subscribers for the fame and the money? Again, the love of money is the root of all evil.
I'm still
You know?
praying for that guy. I hope he comes around, looks into it.
Yeah, yeah, me too. So a couple of points I just see that as a boy you've been you know like all of us programmed. I know you probably felt rejected, and of course you said you were abused. And that sucks. I hate to hear that, and I think that we all suffered those same things in some kind of way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
It seems like a
Yeah,
similarity between all of us. Just like you say, because you're running away from Yahweh, and he does exactly what he said he'll do in Amos. When he said that he'll hunt you down, and he'll grab you from the mountains, no matter where you go. You know,
yep.
there's no running from him.
He has no hold on me now, though,
That's how I feel about my life too,
and there's no
Shannon.
It's
Yeah.
because the real
there's no
answer not to
fear.
run away from him, but to, I guess, like face him head on. You can't resist or fix all the evil in this world,
No.
Right.
but we can live in it. You know,
Yeah.
and have no fear and still be lights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that stood out, and I'm sure it's going to be in the next testimonies in some kind of way, possibly. But it seems that religion is separating people, not bringing them together.
True.
Your relationship, You know, the death of many relationships is because of religion.
Yeah.
Yep. We all have, since we've found the true truth, we've all lost people because of it.
Not just
Separated.
relationships, man and woman, but jobs. People lose their
Yeah.
jobs over that relationship. You know, it's just bad. It's not you know, it's the reason why I think it's death worship because in every way, shape, or form, you know, it's inviting it into our lives. Um, and they threaten you with the same fear that they tell people not to have. You know, if you do this, like you said, if you do this, you're gonna get kicked out. Like you said, your ex-wife said,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell them, and then they're gonna do this, and they're gonna do that. And yet, this is the part that makes me sick. And sorry if I get passionate,
That's okay.
because, like you said, they turned their head when they saw you coming in beat up. So when it's time to stand up for righteousness, prime opportunity to show that your religion is teaching the right thing, that you practice what you preach, you failed. Everyone turned their heads, every single one.
Hmm.
I'm disgusted.
Yeah. They hunted
Jesus
me
said,
down.
"You will know them by your fruits."
Hmm.
That's what Jesus said.
Yeah.
I don't see any good fruits in religion. I see
No.
good fruits from individuals.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there's a lot of good people in that my former religion.
There is a
Uh,
lot of good people in all of
both
them.
Yeah.
both of them that I was involved in, Christianity and Jehovah's Witnesses.
Hmm.
Um, and there's a ton of good people. That's why my heart goes out to them, and I want to help them get out of it. And I still I still try to reach them.
I'm glad that you do.
Yeah.
Um, you know, you got lost in the woods, Shannon, on the Sabbath. Reminding me that Jesus said, "Is it lawful to do good
Oh my
on the
gosh.
Sabbath?" Which one of you is not going to go get your ox that fell in the pit
Yep.
on the Sabbath? You know,
Good one.
that should have told you everything you need to know, Shannon.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
think
unless
it
you
did.
fall 50 feet, you know, using a hospital, they ain't come and see you. Man,
Well, it didn't take long for me to wake up. I mean, that's when my journey really began, when I fell and I was out on the street. And it only took a year of probably about a year of me just searching and asking questions and going through everything I was going through and going to jail and all that. It was all part of the waking up process. So it, it didn't take that long. What is this? I found Scriptural Truth Channel in 2024. So it only took a couple years to go from a lifetime of being in a cult to bouncing around to different cults and getting out of all of it.
I think it can
You know?
happen instantly. I think it can, and I think it does for some people. So
Yeah.
that doesn't surprise me. You know.
you
Yeah.
know, the people that, all the people that were waiting for Jesus to come, they spent their whole lives waiting. The woman that had the blood issue was waiting. She had the issue her whole life,
Yep.
Yeah.
and it all turned around in one instant. You know, you
Yep.
said an
Yep.
interesting phrase, and I mean, I wish you can like make a plaque of it. You know, you said, "My journey didn't begin until I fell."
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And
That's
I
loaded.
honestly, mine was the same way. So, it,
I mean,
different
it,
scenario, but yes, the same way. You know, I fell and then I couldn't take it anymore, and you
it
know,
seems like a lot of us woke up in 2020, 2020, 2021, because
yes,
that was when I woke up too. I
same
mean,
here. Yep.
yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, and all the people that I've talked to, you know, so many people said the same thing. You know, it was all when the pandemic started, people woke up, you know. So
Exactly.
I
Hmm.
do think Father's coming into the hearts of people to, reveal his truth as time is shortening. I really believe that.
Yeah.
Um, because yeah.
Me too.
Hmm.
I
The
just
last
wanted
thing
to
I
say
wanted to
before.
go ahead.
Oh, Oh, I just wanted to. I wasn't looking at the comments while I was talking, and I see a lot of have reached out and said nice things, and I'm going to read through them all and thank you.
The nice thing is that we can, on the YouTube videos, the comments are all there now, so it's wonderful. I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is.
yeah,
Yeah, it gets everyone involved, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, religion seems to be the trap that's just waiting, while the beast system is just beating us down in the governments, and they beat you down and make you run towards. I mean, is that not how a thief comes to steal a sheep? He use fear first, take away all your exits, and give you a false exit, but it's really just the entry into his van. You know,
Yep.
that's just how it
yeah,
goes.
yeah.
There's a verse that I was reading because at work I do a lot of my studying there, and all week I've been super busy studying. And one verse that came to mind. I want to say it's John 10, but I'm not 100% sure. But I'm just gonna try to paraphrase it. Um, Man, wow, I probably won't be able. Maybe I should just get my notes out, huh? It's right here. Hold on. I'm sorry, guys.
No, don't be sorry. That's fine. Fine.
Okay, let me see. Yeah, so John 10:7 through 13, right? It's the parable about how the thief came to steal, kill, destroy, right? But it's calling the thief. First, I want to know, who do we think the thief is? Can we take like a 2-3 minutes to read that verse? Is that okay?
Go for it. Yep.
Okay. I just want to really get y'all thoughts on this, and if it sounds like I got a piece of pizza in my mouth, it's because I do.
Oh my gosh.
All right, John.
You gotta chew it
Oh my
and
goodness.
swallow it.
I'm just trying not to choke here, Shannon. Okay. All right. Let me see. What did I say? 10:7 through 13. Okay. Almost there, guys. All right. 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. Man, where is 7? There it is. Okay. So Jesus said again, I tell you the solemn truth. I am the door for the sheep. All who came before me were thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the door. If anyone enters through me, he will be saved, and he will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come so that they may have life and may have it abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand, who is not a shepherd and does not own sheep, sees the wolf coming and abandons the sheep and runs away, so the wolf attacks the sheep and scatters them. Because he is a hired hand and is not concerned about the sheep, he runs away. Now, I may have to read some of it again just to point out some of these key points here. First of all, the hired hand is the main thing. First, if we all can agree that all that come before are thieves and robbers, not only do I take that as the prophet speaking for a god, but I take that as the other gods too. From the old days, all once in worship. Hence the reason why Solomon and them, got in trouble for worshiping other gods, in the presence of Yahweh. Right? So to me, those are the thieves. Do you guys agree that those are the thieves?
Yep. They're all thieves.
Definitely.
Okay. So if we, and I do too. So if they're all thieves, right? So here, let's go back to this verse here. I'm the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand, who is not the shepherd and does not own sheep, sees the wolf coming and abandons the sheep. So these thieves are hired hands. Who hired the thieves?
Yahweh Satan.
And that's because I thought Yahweh was the thief. Because remember, he's stealing the sheep by stealing the worship. giving us, a false. We're going to a false savior, a false father. You see what I'm saying? So I thought Yahweh was the thief. So that to me that brings a huge question, like who hired these guys? If if the parable is actually trying to say that.
Well, whether it is or not, they all fell with Yahweh at the same. They all fell at the same time. They just some of them work for him. Some of them, like he's the leader, if you know what I mean.
Hmm. But that's what I mean by religion is that trap. They're thieves, robbers,
Yes.
stealing worship
Yes.
from the Father, from the one that deserve it. They can't give life.
That's right.
They're stealing. Hmm.
Hmm.
If they could, then they would deserve it. But I guess I want to go to Sally now,
Sure.
if that's okay,
Yeah.
to hear her testimony.
That's hard to follow.
Shannon, you're a tough act to follow, man.
You're a tough act to follow.
Throwing roses on the stage.
Yeah, I was not a Jehovah Witness, but my I guess my story involves more Christianity and New Age. So because I grew up in a Christian household, and it was funny because my mom was super had a super strong faith, and she always wanted us to go to church. My dad, not so much. And so they would try to take us to church when I was a kid. And I've said this a lot on the TikTok lives. Like, there's never been one instance that I have set foot in a church and I felt comfortable. It was like my spirit was always stirred. And I couldn't figure it out. And I mean, I think I finally like resolved in my mind that I just wasn't worthy. I'm like, how they indoctrinate you. I'm such a sinner and I'm not worthy. And so I would like force myself to go. But I never really wanted to. And a lot of times my mom and I would go and my dad would not go. But I'm adopted. So I grew up, me and my brother that's closest to me, I have a brother that's 2.5 years older than me. We're both adopted, and then I have a brother who's 13 years older than me, and he was not. But when I was about 10, both me and my brother, my mom and my dad, we did get baptized. We were going to a Methodist church and got baptized. But then, like after that event happened, we kind of stopped going, and I went into high school, and, I started drinking in high school. And I mean, I managed to get good grades, didn't get in any trouble, but the last thing I wanted to do was go to church on Sunday morning, after being out the night before. So, anyway, I went off to college, and then, shortly after college, I ended up getting married. And a lot of my testimony is like me falling away, from Father. So, I was only married for 8 years, and toward the end of that marriage, I ended up having to have a back surgery. And that back surgery, that was in 2001. When I was in the hospital for that, they severed the main nerve root in my spine. And I won't even go into all of what that entailed, but it was 2 surgeries later, spending 2 months in the hospital. I was on a IV drip every 2 minutes for pain. And I was in pain management for 5 or 6 years after that. My mom actually came and lived with me to help take care of me because I was essentially disabled. Anyway, that turned me into an addict. And I tell that part of the story because when all of that happened, 9 months after that surgery, I found out that my husband was having an affair and he was severely addicted to pornography. And our marriage fell apart. And I was still trying to recover from this back surgery. And the guy that lived next door to me became my drug dealer. All too convenient. But during that time frame, I tell the story, and my addiction spun out for about 5 or 6 years. I went. It got really bad. I overdosed a couple times. I spent a night in ICU in one of the hospitals here. I had to drink liquid charcoal. I mean, I've been through it all as far as my addiction is concerned. But during that time, I got so angry at Father, for allowing, and we have a TikTok video on this not too long ago, like, why does God allow suffering? But I literally turned my back on God at that point because I was so angry. The physical pain that I went through with that back surgery, I can't put it into words to describe what I went through. And that lasted for years. So it's like, no wonder I became an addict. But then when I found out and I went through the divorce with my husband and everything, I mean, it spun out and got much worse than just taking pain pills. I ended up having to go to treatment 3 times to get clean. And I really didn't think I'd ever get clean. I really didn't think that I would ever have the ability. I sort of resigned my life to the fact that I was going to die an addict. And I started dating this guy, and I had gone to his house and spent the day with him at his house. And we were drinking and using, and I ended up falling off. Oh, I don't even remember this. Kind of like what Shannon said, I had an accident too. I don't really remember what happened, but I remember falling and I hit my head, and I remember waking up and sitting on his patio outside, and I was covered in blood. And this guy, luckily, he was the vice president of one of the hospitals. And so I just remember him getting like right in my face, and he took me to the hospital, and he's like, you have to tell them everything you're on. You can't lie to them. And I ended up having a level 3 concussion. And I remember coming home from that, and I was like absolutely terrified. Because if anybody's ever had a concussion, your brain feels like scrambled. I don't know how to describe it, but I was terrified to use, and I couldn't stop. So I was using drugs against my will, knowing I was damaging myself. And I remember one day going to the fridge, and I opened up the fridge and I said, I'm just destined to die. So I kind of had turned my back on God for a while. And my addiction got worse after a few years. And then there was one week I was working. I was using so much. I was just trying to feel normal. And there was one week that my next door neighbor couldn't get anything. And I can't even describe to you how dope sick I was. I lived on the floor in the fetal position for about a week. I didn't know at the time I could have died from it, but I could have died just from that alone. And I ended up breaking down and going to the hospital. And, they gave me a little bit of medicine just to make it until my next appointment. And I ended up taking that. They gave me like 5 days of medicine. I took it all at one time. I don't even remember doing this, but I came out of that and I was dope sick again. And I'm laying on the floor. And I cried out. I said, God, I can't do this anymore. I need your help. Please help me. Enough is enough. Please help me. And I felt the presence of Father from the top of my head to the bottom of my toes, like the level of warmth and love. It went through my body. It was like it was going through my blood. I don't even know how to describe that. And it was like this supernatural thing picked me up off the floor and took me to the phone. And I called my therapist and I said, I need to go to treatment. And so I went to treatment, and I went to treatment 3 times. The first time I got detoxed and I walked out of treatment, and I came home and I overdosed. And that was when I spent the night in ICU. And then I came out of that and I ended up going to a treatment center for 6 weeks. And I left that treatment center and I relapsed within a week. And then the next year it was the same, it was kind of the same thing. And the last time I went into treatment, I was just going in to get detoxed. And this is where my life started changing, coming back to Father, because I was there like crying the whole time. And one of the counselors pulled me into her office and said, are you praying? Are you reaching out? Are you? And I told her no, because again, I didn't feel worthy. But anyway, that night when I was in treatment, I prayed again. I asked Father to help me. And when I got up the next morning, they told me it was time for me to go because I was only there for 6 days. And I said, I'm not leaving. And I realized when I said I wasn't leaving that the obsession and desire to use had been lifted. And I knew I needed to stay in for the full treatment. So I ended up staying in for the full treatment, and I've been clean ever since. And that was the start of me coming back to Father. I didn't know it at the time, but it was me coming back to Christianity. I had a really good friend and neighbor that lived by me, and she did a lot to help me, and she got me back into the church. And so I joined this church, and I did 7 years of Bible study, and I mean, I was going every weekend, but I always knew there was something off. I was going to church. You know how they have the churches now and they have the coffee shops and the fellowship, and it's more of like an entertainment thing. And it was one of those types of churches. Like there was a lot of community. I mean, and like Shannon said, there are a lot of good people at the church. Like my friend that was helping me, she's a good person. They just don't know, just like I didn't know. But I ended up, I was involved in that church, and I ended up, after the 7 years of being there, I ended up leaving, and I moved back to Illinois. My mom and dad, my mom was elderly, and she had Alzheimer's, and my dad was trying to take care of her, and I knew I wanted to spend some time with them, before they passed. And so I ended up moving back from North Carolina to Illinois for 2 years. I lost my mom and my dad, which was really hard. And in that 2 years that I was up there, I became estranged from both of my brothers. My older brother still doesn't speak to me. And for those, why that happened, I don't know. I don't have answers for that. I wish I did, but I don't. And, I lost my mom and dad, and I remember driving back here after my dad died, because I had gone up there for 2 months and he never came out of the hospital, and I drove back and my brothers weren't talking to me, and I just remember walking in my house and sitting down on the couch feeling more alone than I ever had in my life, because I was. I didn't even consider, like going to church or anything at that point. And I ended up getting in a relationship with someone, and we were together for about 9 months or 10 months or so. I ended up being with this person on and off for about 5 years, but this was the first time, and we broke up. And after that breakup happened, it was like this tidal wave of grief swept me. The loss of my mom and dad, moving across the country twice, my addiction, my marriage. I had given up my company. I mean, there was just so much. And I wanted to kill myself. I was sitting in my house and I didn't want to live anymore. And this is the scary part, but I'm thankful I went through it. I had like an awakening, but it was not an awakening from Father. It was an awakening from the dark side, from like Lucifer and or Yahweh. And I went into New Age hard, like all in. I was just looking for pain relief. I was looking to fill up that hole that was in my heart. And for 2.5 years, when I say I did everything in New Age, I did everything in, you name it. And that's why, like, I'm really passionate about, if people have heard me talk about New Age, I'm really passionate about it because I experienced all of it, and it's really dangerous, and I know that Father protected me through it. So, but this was back in 2020, I voted for Trump, and I was on, thinking that all this stuff that he's been promoting and he was promoting, like, was real. I thought he was going to be the savior, and I got on board with all of that. And there was one morning This was right after the January 6th thing where, all that stuff went down in Washington. And I was expecting him to like get back in office, but I woke up and I came out and I made my coffee. And when I tell you I had a come to Jesus moment, I had a come to Jesus moment. And I don't mean that facetiously, but you know how you guys have heard artists talk about how Jesus came to her and told her that she had to stop living the way she was living. And I mean, and to come back to him, that's what happened with me. He literally came into my spirit and said, everything you're doing, everything you're listening to, everything you're believing is a lie. You need to put that down and come back to me. And I can't explain the conviction that I felt. I mean, when he told me to put it down, I put it down. Like that instantly I put it down. I mean, I walked away from all of it and I cleared my house out of all the new age. And but like when he called me back home, I still didn't know this truth. Like I reached out to the girl that does my hair, and her husband wasn't a pastor at the time, but they talked to me, and you guys have probably heard me talk about her and my former pastor, but I did call them. I ended up getting baptized again at the Pentecostal church on Valentine's Day in 2021. I got baptized by the Pentecostal pastor. And then a week later, he told me that because I wasn't speaking in tongues, that I wasn't saved, nor did I get the Holy Spirit. And, I ended up having like an argument with him, and an engagement with him for about 25 minutes. And then it was kind of like, I heard Shannon say this, the guy said, oh, I'll see you Sunday. That's what the pastor said. We were getting off the phone. He's like, oh, I'll see you Sunday. And I'm like, you'll never see me again. I literally said that to him. You'll never see me again. And I called Chris and Julene, and they ended up leaving the church over that. And that's like, it breaks my heart that I can't reach Chris and Julene, because I think they're good people. They're just so deceived, They ended up leaving the church over that, and Chris became a pastor and started his own church. And then when I found out this truth, I went and talked to Julene, and I tried to present it to her, and she heard me. She listened, but she told me that Chris wouldn't even give me a second of his time to have a conversation with me, which is a little bit heartbreaking. But I walked away from the church about a year ago. I haven't been back, and the funny thing is how I found scriptural truth was that I was like your typical Christian, thinking that we were going to get raptured, and I was following a couple false people on YouTube, or not on YouTube, but on Facebook, and they had a lot of people following them, and I don't know that I believed in the rapture, but I wanted to go home so badly that I was hoping that it was true. And when those dates came and went and it didn't happen, I was literally begging Father for truth. I think we all get here. We get tired of the lies and we want to know the truth. And I prayed for about a week. I'm like, I don't care how hard it is. I just need to know the truth. Bring me the truth. And, Father led me to a couple people who brought me to the Scriptural Truth channel, and kind of like Shannon, it's kind of like once you get presented this truth and you start going through the videos, it's like the rose-colored glasses come off and the truth is unrefutable, and it just seems like so much was revealed all at once. And it was easy for me to, it was the Yahweh thing was really easy for me because I had a problem with the Old Testament. But then, when I found out about the two Jesuses, it just kind of made sense. I was like, well, that makes so much sense. I'd never fought it, or it was just really easy for me to accept that, especially after watching some of the videos and looking at it. And I haven't looked back. Like, I'm really passionate about this, and I really want the truth to get out to people. And the thing that I try to tell people, like, I've had more peace in the past year than I've ever had in my life. it doesn't change what's going on in the world, but my understanding about it changes, and because my understanding changes, it's just like I have this constant comfort from Father, like I know He has our back, and, so I'm always, when I do try to present this to people, I try to tell them that. I try to say, Jesus doesn't change, it's still all about Jesus. And He's our hope, He's our salvation. But you got to throw everything else out. You got to look at it like they've lied to us about everything. Why wouldn't they be lying about the Bible and scripture and the church and everything also? Like Yahweh really covered his bases. Like Shannon said, he did a fabulous job of deceiving everyone. And Christianity is that broad road that leads to destruction, I think. And I'm just so forever grateful. Like I know that I always questioned, why did I have to go through the addiction? Why did I have to go through New Age? Why did I have to go through my marriage that ended like that? But all of those things brought me here, and that made it worth it. All the pain and all the suffering and everything that I went through is worth it, just to find this truth, to know that, like, in this lifetime, I'm going to be reconciled to Father when I go home. And I'm like so thankful for that. So,
Well, we're happy you're here, and we're happy you made it through it all.
me too.
Yeah,
Notice how we really wouldn't even know each other probably if we all haven't went through the experiences that we've gone through.
exactly.
Exactly. And that's just it. It's just like we all have a different, all our stories are different but the same. We all have gone through a lot of pain in order to get here,
Hmm.
and different trials. And I mean, I think that's what helps people, because I think a lot of people, I'm sure that there were people listening that could relate to Shannon, and there's people that are listening that can relate to me, and I'm sure they'll relate to Tim and Aylin as well. There's some part of their story that um, resonates. So I think that helps everybody, you know.
I agree. I think that's part of the purpose of tonight is to, get everybody to understand who we are, and also to allow them to know that I'm sure they have stories that are similar, and, maybe it can help them or people who are just
Yeah.
listening. Because right now, guys, we have 174 eyes staring at us watching this that are silent outside the room. How many of them are we helping by just telling our testimony?
Hopefully all of them.
Exactly. Me too. I pray that myself.
Hopefully all of them.
Yeah. Sally, you brought up how when you got to church early on in your life, how you didn't feel comfortable and how you never felt comfortable in the church.
Yeah.
You know, there's people that say, and I'm starting to believe it more and more, especially as I, own these kitty cats that like to make messes get down. And animals and children, they say a lot about places and people and feeling uncomfortable around them or comfortable. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I just think that kind of stands out because I too also never truly felt comfortable in the church. I've always felt like I had to be something I'm not to be accepted there. You know,
Exactly. That's it. That's exactly how I felt. That's a good way to put it, you know.
yeah.
And I think our spirits probably knew, Tim. We probably knew, you know,
Oh, we
something.
did.
Yeah.
We knew we were putting on a show, and they even
Hmm.
say teach that kid how to act. You need to act right. You know, but that's what I think. That's what's wrong with society. It takes what's genuine out of people. People they don't even really apologize. They just say the words. You know, it's just they're just acting.
Yeah. Huh.
But yeah, and I noticed as well. You also had a fall.
Yeah.
We're all just Humpty Dumptys over here, huh? So I want everyone to take notice of your own testimonies, and if there's a fall somewhere in there,
Yep. Yep.
Lynn, I'm gonna ask you about yours next. I'm guaranteeing there's a fall in there now. No?
Oh, there's a fall.
No. Oh, see,
There's a fall.
but Josh, he asked, how do we defeat evil? Remember earlier he was in the comments,
Hmm.
and we were talking about defeating evil. If you can't repay evil for evil, how do you do that? You know, and I think these experiences is it. You hit rock bottom. You realize that this ain't the way.
Hmm.
You realize that these people aren't what they say they are. And you realize what's life without father. What's life without father life? By choosing good, by choosing the father. You see what I'm saying? It's a choice. And I think that's the best way to defeat evil, without repaying evil for evil. I think that's evidence, actually. Not not the best way. I don't even think. I know.
Yeah.
Only because I was afraid to practice it at first. People would do evil to me, but then, I've not always repay them, of course, or threatened to. But I, I realized sometimes I made some pretty good friends by just doing good to people in return, no matter what, you know. So, but also, I just want to say one more thing: the enemy knows that we're looking for a savior. You said that you voted for Trump. And some people it's Trump, Obama,
Yeah.
or it's just whatever religion is out there. Of course, that's nearby or the most influential to them. But it's like people they looking for some. Look at back in the Old Testament. They wanted a king, and then they got Saul. They couldn't wait. I used to view that story as, man, if they would have waited, they would have got David earlier. David wasn't a good king either, you know. But I guess that's just what shows. It shows that when you're greedy, you don't really get the gifts that's waiting for you. You'll take one. I told Josh and I tell this other guy that I work with that's single. And his lady left him as well, kind of like Shannon's case. And he don't want to rush back into one. And I tell him that's a good idea because you don't want to be in one and then you meet the one that you want to be with, but now you're committed to the other one now. You know, just relax. Wait. If you wait and be patient, you'll probably get the best gift.
I agree.
I agree too. Yeah.
But Ellen, let's hear yours. Let's hear
Yeah.
about this fall.
It's not that it's not that I'm nervous to talk about it. It's just that like I'm so afraid that I'll spend too much time telling you guys, like because my story's crazy. Um like, Shannon, I was born into a definitely ungodly family. We didn't have religion at all. We were very dysfunctional. Um, to even the level of incest and genetic problems and a lot of crazy. um, I was born to a mother who her story was worse than mine, where she was born with spina bifida and severely, where she didn't walk like till she was a bit older, and she had club feet and the whole hole in your spine and all the things. And who was very, very abused from the time she was 10 years old, sexually sent to her and her brother, who were 10 and 8, who were sent to a farm as payment for their stepfather, something he did. And this place was run by professionals. Like when I say professionals, I mean like doctors, lawyers, professionals, people that you shouldn't, we shouldn't be involved in this stuff. Nobody should be, but people you should trust. And I remember my uncle telling me they arrived in the driveway and all they saw was a bunch of children running around, and they were happy to see that they were going to be spending time with these children. But for the entire week they were there, they were both sexually abused over and over again, along with all the other children there, as payment for what this stepfather did. And I don't know what he did. Like, I mean, he was definitely a rough man. He could have been involved with some mafia stuff. Like, I'm not really sure. It was crazy. And then she, would come home, and that stepfather would abuse her sexually, verbally, mentally, as well as his brothers. So this was my mom's life. So by the time she's 14, she runs away. Um, she meets a man that's quite a bit older than her, and she convinces him that he got her pregnant. Supposedly he didn't. She was just looking for someone to take care of her. And um, he married her, and she conveniently had a miscarriage, but then got pregnant quite quickly after. And they had 3 children, and which are my older half siblings. And that father ended up in prison for armed robbery. So my mom ended up alone with a 3 children, and this man had also cheated on her and got uh, an illness, let's say, and he passed away in prison at very young age from this disease that he got from being with other women. And then, of course, my mom is stuck with 3 children. Doesn't work. Um, Not even able to, really. And if you can imagine having, 3 children and spina bifida, which was horrible. Her doctors, she wasn't even supposed to live, and her doctors were like angry that, she had had these children in the first place. And then she ends up dating that husband, the ex-husband who passed away's cousin, and she gets pregnant again, not married, but then they get married shortly after. And it was just a bunch of fighting. All they did was fight. And he was angry at my mom. It was kind of the time when men thought that it was the woman's fault because they didn't have the right sex of a child. So because the man prior, like the children from the other marriage, she had a girl, a boy, and a girl. He wanted a boy. And of course, the child my mom had was a girl. So she's pregnant again for me, and they fight, and he beat her up while she was pregnant for me. And she was angry, so she tried to abort me at home. I think this is when the father stepped in and said, no, you're not aborting her. I really believe that because I survived. And right from the time I was born, everybody that knew me saw me as different. They couldn't put their finger on it, but they all saw me as different. And that has stuck with me my whole life. But my mom, she divorced, that she also had another child after that. So mom had 6 kids altogether. And again, nothing but fighting. So I witnessed like bad abuse where my dad physically, assaulted my mom in front of us all. He lined us up on the couch, all 6 of us, and took a shotgun and was ready to shoot us because something my mom did, or he was a very angry drunk, and he had my mom by the throat and the shotgun pointing at us. And then I don't know, I don't remember exactly what happened, but he ended up taking off out of the house, and he ended up shooting our dog, our family dog. My mom grabbed all of us, and we ran out one door because we lived on a street where you had an alley on the back and a street on the front. He ran out the front, we ran out the back. No shoes, no nothing. She's running around the block with 6 children from the ages of, say, at that point, 9 to 2 years old, like very young. And we run around the block, and we bump into a police officer on a motorcycle, and she begs him for help, and he says, and of course it was in the 60s, so that was when a woman goes home and lets her husband deal with the way things should be dealt with, and that's exactly what the police officer told her. Go home and deal with your problems there. So we ran around the block to the front side of the house. Mom got us all in the house, and she locked the door. She got to the back door. He got there before she did. he ended up dragging her outside. He pinned her he pinned her up against the wall and paralyzed her face by pinching her neck. So she ended up with surgeries and a lot of trouble with that. But we witnessed all this stuff. But worse than this, um, when I was, I think it was about 6. No, I was younger. I was 4 because my dad left when I was 4, and I walked into the bathroom, and we had a clawfoot, like one of the big clawfoot tubs, and I saw my sister, my oldest sister, who was then 10, up to her nose in water full of blood. And I screamed, and my mom came running. And I remember her saying, I know exactly what's happened. And of course, the police, she called, for help and stuff. Anyway, she knew exactly what happened because my father had been sleeping around with many, many women, and he had sexually assaulted my sister, which wasn't his daughter. And he'd been doing it from the time she was 6. So mom divorced him. They went to court. He was ordered to pay $1 a month per child, which was only his own. So $3 a month, which he never paid a cent. So there again, mom's on her own with 6 kids. I forgot a detail. My father wanted to give us all up for adoption, and she had signed the papers before she left my father. She had signed the papers, and the morning that the Child Protective Services or whatever, Children's Aid Society, whatever, came to pick us up, she changed her mind and didn't let it happen. Then when he left, quickly after, I'm talking months, and I don't know how many months, but I was still in my 4th year. She met another man who was younger than her by, I think, 4 years or something. And my mom was like, so you remember, she was only 15 when she had her first child, and we were literally one child after the next, after the next, after the next. And so she was very young. By the time she had me, she was only 24 years old. So by the time she had my sister, was like almost 26. So 26 with 6 kids. Emotionally abused, sexually abused, gone through so much that she was just, she was a mess, and she was starting to drink. So she became an alcoholic. She meets this man, like I say, and they get together, and I think he seems very nice, and he's always kind to me and everything else. And I was a very sickly child. If you guys can all imagine the things that have been affecting us since 2020, or not us, but many that took it, affected us as children as well. And I was very, very sick with the effects from that. So always sick. And I also had unknown allergies that people didn't know for like my whole life. And so I was just a really sickly kid with, cold, like face full of cold sores, just always tired and just, but I was always afraid as well. So the stress didn't help. I was the child who stood in the doorway, um, at a young age trying to see what's going to happen. I was always like, being protective of my family. Like, I know it sounds weird at 5 years old, but I was the kid who was just, on the lookout for things. So much so that one time my mom said to me, "What are you, a cop? Are you writing a book?" And she said that to me several times, but I mean, I was just a very afraid child. My siblings saw so much aggression and abuse and lived it, as we all did, that they became abusive as well of each other. So they would be chasing each other around with knives, and my younger sister and I'd be hiding behind couches, and it was just a crazy house, crazy life. And it wasn't even just inside the house, it was like extended family that was exactly the same way. So I didn't have any role models. I didn't have anything. I just had this crazy family of people that I loved, even though we were going through this stuff. The stepfather seemed like he was going to be a good guy. But the lies that, my mom would drill it into my head that, and this is where I know that the father was speaking to me through some of the things my mom would say to me, unlike my siblings, where my mom would say, honesty is the best policy, but she would also say in the second breath, um, do as I say and not as I do, because we would see that she wasn't, doing, not lying and not, being truthful and stuff like that, because when she was living with he wasn't our stepfather at the time. She was living with him. She was also on social services, which you weren't allowed to have a man in your life, but yet they were living together. And so when the social services people came to check up on us, um, they my mom would, get us all together, the six kids, and, tell them exactly what we're allowed to say, what we're not allowed to say. And, we were terrified because, I mean, my brothers, we were to say that all the stepfather's shoes and clothes were my brother's, who was this tiny, tiny guy. Anyway, it was just, I mean, I knew a lie from the truth at that really young age of 4 or 5 years old. I knew the difference. And I know that was the Father speaking to me because, I mean, that's stuff that stuck with me my whole life. Anyway, he tried to help and provide, and our life seemed to go in a better direction. As far as I knew, I didn't know all the stuff that was going on, but as far as I knew, things started going better. Although there was a lot of alcohol and a lot of partying. And by the time I'm 7 years old, my mom tried to kill herself. She did it a couple times, and she ended up in the psychiatric hospital. And we were left at home with this stepfather, and then my aunt and uncle, my mom's brother and his wife, would come in and sort of try to help look after us six kids. Um, I remember waking up in the middle of the night, my mom outside with a sledgehammer smashing this stepfather's car because he had been out drinking and like just crazy all the time. And I mean, I understand my mom, she was confused. She had a lot going on, and she had been cheated on and lied to and, abused and everything else. And she thought this man was going to do the same thing, which he did end up doing. But at the same time, he wasn't at this time, I don't think, as far as I know. But she was very suspicious about everything and very controlling at this point, because now there was no man in the whole world that was going to hurt her. She was going to be the one who was going to be the aggressor. But because my mom had spinal bifida, we were all taught that if we ever touched her, or she ever fell, or if, anything ever happened to her, she could be paralyzed, or she could even die. So we were terrified. So we would watch all these fights that would happen over the years where my mom would be like, she would drag someone to the floor. I mean, it didn't matter what it was. Like, it could be a sibling, it could be like my stepfather, it could be her best friend she'd drag to the floor, and because she was drunk, and she would beat the crap out of them, and nobody wanted to hurt her. They're all like not fighting back with her, they're just letting her pound on them. And here us kids are all thinking that they're hurting her, so we're terrified that mom's going to get hurt, we're going to lose mom, and really it's mom being the aggressor. She did a lot of stuff, but she was also becoming very abusive to us, as far as like she had a friend of hers take and make a belt, because of course she's angry because her children are acting out now, and probably doesn't understand why, but she had this friend of hers make a belt made out of a leather tire, or sorry, a rubber tire, and very thick leather, whatever's made of rubber with the leather in the middle kind of thing, like what a tire looks like. And that's what she would use on us, and we would have these welts on our legs, and of course we're all terrified. I got to the point where I was so stubborn, she couldn't make me cry. I just wouldn't cry. I would wait till I got in my room or whatever, and break down in there, but I would never let her know that she got to me. Um, I was a perfectionist because of all this stuff. Like, I was so, trying so hard to please my mom, cleaning the house. I mean, this is young age, 7 years old, climbing the counters, cleaning on top of the counters, doing dishes, doing the floor, doing whatever I could. Um, my other siblings were made to clean, but they would be off doing things, and we all handled things differently. They all and you can certainly understand why they would be rebellious. They would steal. They would lie. Um, they get to the age young age of like 14, 15, and they started becoming promiscuous. And every single girl, there's 5 girls in my family, every single girl was pregnant at 15. um, having children at 16, a lot of abortions in the family. Um, we were all the girls, and even my brother was sexually abused. Um, one was abused by the stepfather. He got her pregnant. They sent her off to a home, um, about, I don't know how many, about 100 or 200 miles away. I remember they took me there, and for whatever stupid reason, why they would take me, but anyway, they took me there to check the place out, and I remember going, and I remember seeing the place, and um, I just remember them talking about this is where the girls go after they have the children, and just all the stuff. And I didn't think anything of it. I wasn't. I'm used to this life. I'm used to all the stuff. And years later, my sister came to me, and before she passed away, and said, I asked her how she was doing, and and she told me this. I asked her about the story about her and my stepfather, and she ended up telling me the whole thing, and said, you probably won't believe it. But then I told her I remembered going there. But anyway, there was just so much stuff. Um, my mother, my mother would like put the moves on my sister's boyfriends. Um, my mom tried to run over my brother with a car. Like there's just so much stuff. And the detail. I'm not even giving you details, guys. This is just crazy. It's crazy life. So by the time I'm the only one in my family that stayed in school. Everybody else, because of course they're young and pregnant or confused. My brother ended up being a drug deal, like on drugs in a youth jail, and then going to prison later on because he was a drug dealer. Um, like just a lot of like nobody escaped this stuff. The effects of all this stuff was really really hard on everyone. But I seemed, even though I wasn't okay on the inside, um, I seemed like I was doing fine on the outside. And, I was the kid who would, I would charge everybody 25 cents for swearing, and I had a swear jar, um, and like I was the one who would always tell the truth, and, always clean my room, and just trying to be, not trying to be like my mom's favorite, not trying to be, um, not to suck up or anything like that, just because I thought that was just the way to make things better. And my family hated me for it because my mom would praise me up to all of her friends while they visited friends, family, but as soon as they left, she would tear me down. And she would tell me, don't you ever let this go to your head because you're no better than anyone else, and all this stuff. Like, just my siblings didn't want really to play with me or to be around me very much. I was often by myself as a child and running, playing in the forest. I remember going in the woods and just walking, and there was like garbage dumps back there, and I would just walk through the garbage and just, sort of all in my head space by myself. We moved so much that I couldn't form friendships because every year we would move. So I went to a new school. I, I never stayed in the same school until more than a year, or more than, say, 6 months to a year, until I was in I think it was grade 6. And then I probably was there until grade 8. But even then, it was like I did have a friendship with this one girl, but then she moved off to a different school, so that friendship ended. So I never had one friendship that, all these people, like my daughter, she's got friendships with the same people she went to kindergarten with. My husband has had friendships with people, up until his married life, with people that he went to, kindergarten with. I never knew that sort of thing. When I was in high school, I was friends with everyone. I was friendly with everyone. I got along with everyone. But I never hung around with anyone. You would often find me, you know, meeting my aunt, my mom's sister, for lunch in high school. We would drive around. She would take me back to school, or I would sit under the stairs in the hallways where nobody was by myself. because I never fit in anywhere. I never felt I belonged. I never thought this, I was, you know, I often thought I was an alien. And I know that I got the nickname, or not even the nickname, but I got called that by my grade 9 English teacher for, 6 months, that I was an alien. Couldn't pronounce my name. That was the other thing. Like, nobody was ever really kind to me in my family. It was always like I got named everything but my name, literally. Like I was called um, Leonard, Charlie Smith, Lynn Pin, and a lot of unkind, harsh names. Um, when I got to high school, and you have to fill your forms out, they asked me, what do you want to be called? Because my birth certificate name was a Lynn Mary, and I said a Lynn, and then I got called that from then on. But then I even got ridiculed by that, because who am I to think I'm better, to change my name? I didn't change my name. I just started going by my birth name, but it's my siblings won't call me. My one sister will, but most of them won't call me by my real name. My mom did. But like Tim and I were talking that one live where, your mother would say your name, but it would be a Lynn Mary St. Pierre, and then you'd be in trouble. So my mom really only said my name when she was angry. I I didn't know how to stand up for myself, even though I was a strong, willed person. I always let people kind of walk all over top of me. Um, I got called a snob. I got called Miss Goody Two Shoes. Everything, because I just tried to be a better person, because I just tried to live my life differently. I saw, even at, very, very young age, that the way we were, like, mostly because I stayed at other people's houses overnight. I missed that step to tell you that, the very first time I stayed overnight at a friend's house, my mom never checked things out, and I was 8 years old. She never checked things out. You know, she's just probably glad to get rid of one of her 6 kids for the night or the weekend. And I went to my friend's house, and I didn't realize that her dad, she was he was a single dad. He was a truck driver. And here I am at 8 years old, showing up with my friend off the school bus. And we unlocked the door to her apartment, and we went in, and there's nobody there, nobody watching us. We made our own supper. We played out until dark. We came back in. We did whatever we wanted, and then we went to bed at literally like probably 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. We're 8 years old. And she had a set of bunk beds, and she took the top bunk, and I took the bottom bunk. I'd never seen her dad's face. I never knew what he looked like. And I woke up in the middle of the night to this man not being very good to me. And it was a horrible thing I had to go through. I was basically frozen. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. I couldn't do anything. And the next morning, he had already called my mom and asked if I could go away with them for the weekend. So I'm trapped with this guy for the weekend. And he tries to bribe me with a Dairy Queen ice cream cone. I'm terrified. I'm terrified. I get out of his car after the weekend's over, and I run over to my mom. They were sitting under a big tree, and I was in tears, and I ran over to her, and I told her what happened, and she looked through me. She didn't say anything. She didn't console me. She didn't tell me anything. She looked through me, and they were all drinking, of course. So I was left to feel like this was my fault. And it wasn't long after I heard my mom say those exact words to my sister, who was abused by my father, that it was her own fault. So then I took those words on as it was my own fault. So as I was going through puberty, I didn't know the changes. Nobody ever spoke to us. I didn't know the changes of what, your body's supposed to do or anything like that. And I was embarrassed of everything, thinking it was my own fault. This was because I did something bad, you know. Um, And then, I didn't date. I wasn't a dater. And if I did have a boyfriend I had this boyfriend in public school from grade like, 6 to 8 or something. And of course, you know what, most people dating in school is pretty much nothing. But he really liked me, and he kissed me one time. It was like a grade 8 kiss, okay? But I was like, do never tell anyone that, and he did, and I was mortified because I thought it was wrong. And but I still liked him, but at the same time, you know, I'm a kid. Anyway, my mom did some pretty rough stuff with that whole thing too. And then so by the time I'm going into high school, I dated a couple guys that you walk down the hall with and you hang onto their hand, but that was it for this girl. This girl was too afraid of guys, and I got called a lot of names because I didn't do things. And then there's a whole story between my one sister and I and this one boy that was a family friend. He was 4 years older than me, 5 years older than my sister, and my sister's just a little bit younger than me. And he really liked me for about 6 years, and I didn't like. I liked him as a brother. I didn't like him as a boyfriend. I never wanted to be with a boy because I was too afraid. And after 6 years of him, trying to go out with me and this and that, and I was friends with him, but I didn't want anything else. But then I met my husband, and this other boy was really angry because like what does my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, have that he didn't have? So he caused a lot of trouble in the family. And my other sister ended up marrying this guy, actually dating him, I should say. And then she did marry him, and then like there's just so much story like back like with the family and interrelationships. So I didn't go out with him, but she did. But she also went out with a boy that my other sister ended up marrying, and there's just a lot of that stuff that went on in the family. So there was always chaos, just chaos and fighting, and I just saw through it all. I just didn't want to be a part of it all, and I always tried to get my siblings to understand, that we live in a crazy place. We don't have to live like this. We can change. We can get out of this. And but then who was I to think that I was better than the family and this and that? So when I started dating my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, I was going to be 18 a month after we started dating, and he was 19, and I'm still with Paul. And they didn't like him. They ridiculed me for dating him because he stuttered really badly, and I was not somebody who was out for looks. My husband's a really handsome man, but I wasn't somebody who was looking at looks. I wasn't somebody who was looking at, listening to the way he spoke. I was looking at, this person and how kind he was, and he was asking me to date him and this and that, and I said no so many times, the poor guy. Um, but he still kept coming back, and he just broke down crying one time, and that's the part that changed for me, and I started dating him. Um, and like I said, my family, they ended up liking him better than they liked me anyways. And they always said that poor Paul to have to deal with me, which was another, complex for me. Um, and then 2 years, like Paul and I dated for about a year, and my mom decided that she was going to kick me out of the house because I was the only one working. There was just my sister and I and my niece, who was raised by my mom, that lived at home. And my mom's best friend was getting a divorce, so she decided she was taking her friend in plus her child. And because my mom and I didn't have a good relationship, I mean, that's part of the story, is that I took my mom to Alcoholics Anonymous one time, and because I wanted her to stop. Like, she used to terrify us. She would wake up in the morning, and as soon as you heard her slippers hit the floor, you'd just be, like you'd literally be like shaking, and like you'd be terrified. You'd clean your mess up right away and get out of the room so you didn't have to see her. And we all learned to know like her sounds and stuff like that. We were just constantly on alert. And like, as my mom had uh, like started drinking early in the morning, and and she was also on a bunch of prescription drugs that made her do a lot of things. The doctors back then just kept giving drugs. They didn't take the drug away previously that didn't work. They just added another drug on. So she was literally, her top of her fridge was lined up with medications. And my mom was just like a very, very angry, bitter, bipolar. I don't even know how to just, it was horrible. Anyway, she decided she was having this friend move in, and my younger sister was pregnant. She was 15 and pregnant. Everybody else was moved out. Um, I was working because I was at a school at the time, and my younger sister wasn't working. And my mom, and she had her own room, and I had my own room. Um, and she ended up kicking me out of the house so that her friend could move in, but I had nowhere to go. And I asked my siblings if they would take me in, and nobody would take me in. I asked my aunt and uncle, my mom's, the ones that I was closest to, like, to take me in, and they said they didn't want to get involved. Everybody knew that I wanted to do everything the right way. I wanted to, get married, have children, do all the right things. They knew that, and they used that, and they tried to break it down so that I couldn't be any better than them. So I ended up living with Paul. His parents took me in. I lived there for, I think it was 3 months. And then Paul and I got our own place. So I was still in my 19th year. And I felt ashamed. I felt ashamed to live. I was made to feel ashamed, sorry. And I did feel ashamed. Sorry, guys. Because I was moving in with him. And I wasn't married. And I wanted to be different. Anyway, we ended up marrying 6 months later, but that was with pressure. I was pressuring Paul, like, I can't live with you unless we're married, and so that put strain on the two of us. Paul and I were together right from the beginning for the right reasons, which is what held us through all this. But it was hard on us. But it was also hard that my aunt and uncle, who were the closest to me, ridiculed me because I moved in with Paul. Not that, not that they didn't live and do a lot of things wrong, but she was the Christian type. She ended up being my uncle ended up marrying this woman who was raised in the Salvation Army Church. Was not a saint by any means, but, definitely, like, definitely could point fingers at you for doing something wrong. And I could point a lot of fingers back at her for all kinds of things, but I won't do that. But I felt horrible because I knew that I didn't meet up to even my own standards. And then Paul's mom, she didn't really like me. So I was always a really tough thing on our relationship. And she tried to break us up a couple times. Anyway, Paul and I got married when I got married on the 23rd of August, 1986, and I turned 20 on the 29th, 1986. And we were quite happy, but I was a very terrified person. I grew up, I was very suspicious as well because I didn't think anybody could really love me. So, I mean, Paul's in my beginning was more, it was pretty rough because I was rough on him because I just didn't trust anybody. And, so he was an extremely, extremely good guy to put up with me and my, being jealous and being, suspicious of everything he did. And he wanted to have children. I was terrified. I didn't think I ever wanted to have any children. I actually was, all through my life said I'd never have children. I wanted to be a nun. I wanted to join a convent, and, And by the time, within a short time, he convinced me to have children. So we tried and tried, and I say tried and tried. My siblings got pregnant very easily. We're a very fertile family. Um, for me, it took several months, and even though it wasn't a long time compared to what people are going through today with infertility, I felt that I would probably be the one that could never have children because I was the one that was trying to live right. Everybody else was having babies left, right, and center, aborting them, this, that, and the other, and I would probably be, never have children. Anyway, I ended up getting pregnant. The pregnancy went really well. I had my daughter, and again became terrified because and I made Paul promise to never leave me alone, you know, uh, for the longest time because I was afraid of hurting her because all I ever knew was that hurt people, abused people will hurt their children, and I was terrified to do that. And I never did, but I was terrified. And I got to a point where I I realized that I wasn't going to hurt anyone. I didn't have it in me, but I had a fear of it. Um, then we were building our new home, and it was right beside Paul's mom and dad. They gave us a piece of land, and we were building the home. And I was pregnant for Nick, and that's when things kind of went south, and like for started to go south with our relationship because Paul's dad was the kind of man. He was a good guy, but he was the kind of man who you know thought it was okay to go out drinking after work with your buddies and leave your wife at home with the children and not worry about anything. And you know they had a lot of fights like that. Well, Paul was raised the same way. And when I first met Paul, he was a drinker and he was a partier, and he quickly learned that it's either me or the drinking. And because I had to live with my mom, but I didn't have to live with him. And he stopped cold turkey. He didn't drink. I mean, he still had some episodes of drinking throughout the years, but it wasn't like he was a drinker. He was just like an occasional drinker that couldn't handle it and got drunk and then, had to deal with the consequences. But he wasn't like a person who drank all the time. But Paul would go out after work. Up to this point, he would go out after work drinking, and here I am at home, struggling because Paul's mom was so hard on me. She lived next door, and she would, constantly watch everything I was doing. If she saw me carrying anything in the house, she'd be just like on me all the time. She would want to know what I bought, how much money I spent, like just if I was working nights, and I slept in the daytime, she would let herself in the house and you know, come into my bedroom and wake me up and say, "Where are the kids? What are you doing in bed?" And like I just got off nights, like it was just constant, and I didn't know how to stand up for myself. And I just felt like so controlled. In the meantime, while this is all happening, my mom and my family had totally disowned me, stopped talking to me completely. When I was pregnant for Nicholas, my mom would have a bunch of parties, and she would call me up in the middle of the night and say that she was going to, she would say, "I have someone here that wants to talk to you." And I'm like, this is like in the middle of the night, and I'm 8 months pregnant for Nick, and I said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "I have the guy that's going to rape you here. He wants to talk to you on the phone." So Paul grabbed the phone because I'm devastated, and he's talking to him. And, Nick ended up being born 3 weeks early because I was just tormented. Not to mention, I had to now live knowing that there's this guy out there, you know, that was going to do something to me. And, I would be working and getting off work and be terrified, to get home without something happening. And, they literally hated my guts. My whole family hated my guts. So I didn't have my family at all, period, nobody. And then now I didn't really have Paul's mom. I didn't have Paul's family either because his mom really did not like me because it was like she liked me for a little bit, and then Paul's older brother would meet up with a girl, and then that girl became the better girl, and then I was shunned, and it was just like nobody loved me. It was like, and then I even was skeptical of Paul's. I was skeptical. I was like, because now he's doing the same thing his dad did, and, you know, um, Anyway, Paul and I ended up getting to where it was really hard that, you know, not to mention after I had my kids, I had gained weight. Um, and my husband was at the time very, I don't know what the word is, but um, self, what's that Shallow Hal movie, you know? I mean, I wasn't huge or anything by any means, but at the same time, he didn't like my being overweight. Yeah, Shallow Hal. And so he didn't pay as much attention to me. He would call me names, you know, like um, he would compare me to my sisters. I mean, I went through a lot of stuff. It was just like it was hard. And this is coming from a guy that, you know, it's hard to even say those things about because he is such a super guy, but still did it, you know, and it was still hard. So now, at this point, I'm back to work. My kids are a couple years, Nick's a couple years old. I'm back to work. Almost nervous breakdown. I had decided to become somebody who wouldn't eat. I became bulimic. I was throwing up so that I would lose weight. I lost about 50 pounds and I was down to probably 92 pounds. I think actually when I got married I was 92 pounds. So yeah, I was back down to about 92 pounds. Very, very thin and very, very ill. Um, but I was still working. And Paul's boss, because Paul worked for a construction company, and Paul's boss worked right down the road from where I did. I actually worked for Paul's boss's cousin. I was a secretary for him. And so to save money, because we didn't have money, Paul's boss would drive me to work. So over a few years span, you know, he was just a super, super nice guy to me. He was very, this man's 32 years older than me, by the way. Um, but he was super, super nice to me. He was just like I honestly looked at him like a father figure. He was so kind. He was the first person in my life that actually ever really listened to me. Um, he seemed to really deeply care. Um, like, you know, he sounded like he was trying to help me with my relationship with Paul. Like, I mean, everything lined up, like as far as me being, you know, thinking this is just a father figure. Anyway, one day, and I always had to come back. I had to walk to his office to get the ride home. And this one day, we always had to go in from the inside of the office to back through a back room to where his garage was, and then one day he grabbed a hold of me in there, and I guess his feelings were much different than mine. And I was stunned again. Um, but it was weird stunned too because it was like I was blown away and I felt like this, you know. Anyway, so I didn't let it go anywhere. I went home because Paul and I had promised each other that if anything were to ever come to the point where you thought something was going to happen that you needed to talk, you know, let's get it in the open. So when I went home, I talked to Paul. I told him exactly what happened. I didn't hide anything. And the words that came out of his mouth hurt me really bad. And he said, I guess it's got to happen. Instead of instead of saying, you know, let's get help. Let's do whatever we have to do. He said, I guess it's got to happen. So then I was really lost because now I didn't have my family. I didn't have his family. And I sure didn't feel like I had him at that point. So it took a while, but that man actually convinced me. We ended up having an affair, an open one, which was even worse because I told Paul and he was just like, well, it's got to happen. And it was just like no fight for me, no, like no nothing. Anyway, um, just we ended up deciding to go to see a therapist, and the therapist told us to get divorced, even though neither one of us wanted it. Uh, I ended up um, meeting a psychiatrist that I actually was doing this psychiatrist's hair. I was apprenticing at the time for hairdressing, and I was putting colors on her all the time, but I didn't know she was a psychiatrist. I knew, I don't even know if I knew she was a doctor, but anyway, um, one day somebody said she was a psychiatrist, and it kind of freaked me out because because I used to talk to her about stuff, but I was this girl that on the outside you wouldn't know there's anything wrong. On the outside I was like prim and proper and had, like dressed very nice and just had everything together, but on the inside I was just like, I was gutted. There was nothing left. Anyway, I ended up calling her and asking if I could come and see her. Or actually, I asked if Paul and I both could come and see her. And she said, "Can you send me a letter?" This was over Christmas, and she said, "Can you send me a letter in the mail? Just give me a rundown of what is going on." I ended up sending her a book, and because of course my life was crazy. And she called me and said, "Lynn, I think you should come to me alone." And by that point, I had already decided the same thing. So I ended up going alone. I talked to her for a little bit, like, a few months or whatever. And then she asked to see Paul. And Paul came in. And of course, I'm very bitter and angry. I was starting to hold a lot of grudges. I was becoming somebody I didn't even like myself. I think, but you have to remember, or I think I might have told you guys some of this before, where I said the words, "If you can't beat them, join them." I said that statement twice in my life. The first time was when this man, when I thought that I had nobody, I said to myself, or maybe I said it out loud, "If you can't beat them, join them." So I had the affair. The second time I said, "If you can't beat them," actually the first time, that was the second time. The first time was when my sister had her first baby. It was my younger sister. She had her first baby, and it was just after Paul and I got married. And so I was like 20 years old, and she had her baby. And I didn't swear. I told you I was the girl who, collected money from everybody in a swear jar because I didn't like it. I didn't like it then, and whatever. But when my sister had her baby, I loved this baby so much that I just wanted to be around her more, but they didn't like me. So the only way that I could fit in was to start swearing. So I started swearing, and I started swearing really bad, but I said the same words I said, which was, "If you can't beat them, join them." So both times I ended up doing, I swear, guys, Yahweh, took over, both times. Um, so, you talk about a fall. That was my fall, like that I fell. How did I get out of this? I stuck with therapy for, it was 10 years. I raised my kids with this therapist for 10 years. Um, she helped me through everything. I never abused my children because I had someone supporting me. Um, you know, she supported me through, getting away from this other man. She supported me through how to make things better with Paul. She supported Paul. She supported my children. So I became very close to this woman. So the agreement with her, when I first met her, she was like, because I, like Sally, had decided I was going to kill myself. And I was driving home one night from work, and I just had these thoughts of just drive your car off the side of the road. Just do it. And it just kept saying that to myself inside my head. And I couldn't remember driving from point A to point B anymore. Like, I would get in the car and I would just be driving and I wouldn't even have a clue where I was. And um, so after being with her for, 10 years, um, or sorry, in the beginning, she said she wanted me to go on an antidepressant. And I told her my story about my mom and them, that I was so against any drugs. I didn't want to be on anything. And she begged me because of my, wanting to take my own life. to take them for 3 months so that I could come straight off them. This one drug that she was, telling me to take was going to be one that you can come straight off. There's no side effects, which wasn't true. She didn't know it, but it wasn't true. It was horrible. Um, but I took them. But the agreement was that I got to say when I was finished. I get to say when I feel healthy, and that she was to help me not to condemn other people, but to help me um, go through all the situations that I went through so that I could learn from them and grow from them and be healthier mind, and all the things. And she did, but she she happened to be so very, very new age. So she took me down a lot of new age things, and I mean, they were very helpful. I mean, I have to say, she helped me through a lot. And again, Yahweh's still working on me, right? Even though I'm getting better and things are going better, Yahweh's still working because I'm doing new age now. Not even knowing anything different because I'd never heard of it before. I just, I swore by this woman that she was like, sent from, I said she was sent from God, like to help me with this. And she was. She was, and I'm not condemning this woman because this woman had a heart of gold, but the practices, were definitely not good. She was into energy medicine and Reiki and just all the stuff. She was like down, down, down the rabbit hole. Um, but that was 10 years. And then she and I became really good friends from that point till 2020. When 2020 hit, um, and I went this way towards the Father, because when 2020 came, there's so much stuff in here in between this, guys, that, like the story's so big. There was a lot of stuff with my daughter. I didn't get to see my granddaughter for 2 years. Like, there's just so much stuff. My son was ADHD. He was abused at school. So I was living like in torment. um, my mom finally did come to me after 5 years of being away from me. Apologized, told me she had stopped drinking. Then didn't speak to me again for a long, long time. I only got 3 months of my mom's life um, before she died in 2006, that she finally let me back in, and I took care of her until she passed away. But it was like 3 months less 3 days or something like that, and um, that that 3 months healed a lot because I wasn't somebody that needed my mom to apologize. I don't need a lot. I don't need a lot of apology. I don't need a lot of that. People can be like, they can just be subtle on their apologies and subtle in their, all they have to do is change their behavior and I'm good. So I was taking her to her cancer treatments, and the very last time I took her, um, she reached over and she grabbed my hand. She said, "I didn't think I would turn out to be like my grandmother." And I knew exactly what she meant. Her grandmother was an alcoholic. And she said, so I asked her, I said, "Well, what do you mean, Mom?" And she said, "To be an alcoholic," which is weird, which was her way of saying she's sorry because she couldn't admit it for her whole life. But, she said it was her way and I accepted it and there was no need for anything else. So I got 3 months of my mom's life before she passed away that we had a pretty good, authentic relationship, and it healed a lot of things. Now my siblings would like to tell me all the things she said about me while she was dying that wasn't very nice, and I'm just like, she told you those things. She didn't tell me those things. I don't need to know. She gave you what you wanted. She gave you that you needed to feel the most important. I don't need to feel that. She didn't, so it's just we had weird relationships with our family. Then Paul and I, when Nick was in college, um, Nick decided that he had never dated a girl, and then he met this girl, and he ended up living in a crack house for 5 months trying to save this girl who was made to be a drug dealer from the time she was 10, because Nick has such a great heart. And that was really hard on Paul and I. And then we were building at the time, we were building in a granny suite for Paul's mom. We had her living here uh, for 16 years after her husband passed away. And she did not like me. So it was like this doctor that I became friends with. She said to me, Elaine, you're the only person I know that could have your mother-in-law who hates your guts living, build a granny suite and have her living next door to you. But I loved my husband so much that I would do that for my husband. That's how that came. And I tolerated a lot of stuff, and it was really, really difficult, but I was still kind. I still was helpful and did everything I could. And it wasn't until the night before she passed away that she happened to say to Nick, I think I finally understand your mother. Took her that long. Took her 40 some years. um, but all my friendships ended. I've only had like a few good friendships in my life, my whole life, um, and every single one of them ended in 2020. I had my own business for almost 30 years, and I considered those people also my friends. I was a hairstylist and I owned my own business, and they all walked away from me. They wanted nothing to do with me, and they still to this day don't talk to me. Um, but something was different from 2020 when I realized, because I ended up waking up when my daughters. I was always a conspiracy theorist, guys, on a real shallow level. I didn't know all the stuff of the world, but I knew things weren't right. I lived my life and all the stuff I went through, so I saw things. I was just, my eyes were always open. But in 2020, my daughter, who struggled with a relationship with me for whatever reasons, um, she is the one who opened my eyes to all the, elite stuff and the, you know, I'm not going to go into all the names, but you guys know what I'm talking about. All the things that everybody fell down the rabbit holes with in 2020. I spent 2 weeks crying, being ripped apart because I knew that those things had happened to my mom, the MK Ultra, because where we live was one of the first hospitals in Canada or in Ontario that did the MK Ultra. And my mom had electric shock treatments on her brain several times. And I knew that there were certain trigger words that would be said and my mom would freak out. My mom would. So once I learned this stuff, I realized that our family was affected by probably a lot more than just my mom being MK Ultra. Like my grandmother, her mother wouldn't even hardly speak to anyone. Like she was so abused. Um, I also didn't tell you guys that my mother was a product. Like my mother's grandfather is her father. It's just like it's generational. It just went back so far. And, and I just wanted to break out of this whole thing so badly. And I did. I have. But in 2020, I was awake. I was awake, and the Father was showing me stuff. And at that point, I didn't know to call him Father. I was still calling him God. Like Sally, and Nick and I in 2021 got baptized at this is a story too. We got baptized at a Pentecostal church because we didn't go to church. We didn't have any church in our life. I did miss a lot of stuff there. There was times that as far as the church stuff, when I was a little girl, we were sent off to Sunday school in a bus because my mom wanted to get us kids away from her. So when I was a little girl, I loved going to Sunday school and I loved hearing those things. And so that stuck with me. And then as I got a little older, there was a group, what do you call that? Like it was a church group for kids, and I went to it. And I ended up going on a couple of trips with them and stuff. And I mean, that kind of stuff stuck with me. And then when Paul and I were going through the troubles, we lived right next door to Jehovah's Witnesses, and they were people I grew up with, and they were so kind to us and everything, and they dragged us into the Jehovah's Witness stuff. So we were in that for 7 months. And then I had my good friend at the time was a Catholic, so we ended up going to her Catholic church a couple times. Paul's brother and his wife were going to Pentecostal church, and that's the only church that I knew of at that time to go to because I wanted to be. I prayed to the Father that I wanted to be baptized so bad because of course I didn't. I thought it was the good thing to do. And I prayed so hard to be baptized, but I didn't know how to go about it because I didn't belong to a church and I didn't want to belong to a church. And I ended up reaching out to this pastor, this church, and I told him straight up in this email that I want to be baptized, but I don't believe because I was going down the Hebrew roots stuff at this time. I say Hebrew roots, but I don't think it was called. I think it was just Hebrew Messianic stuff, and I don't know if it's exactly the same thing. I think they think there's a difference. I don't think there is, but and I I wanted to be baptized, but sorry, I wasn't quite into the Hebrew roots stuff yet when I was being baptized. I hadn't got quite that far. So, but I didn't believe in. I was talking to the Father myself, and I wasn't listening to outside people at this point. I was deciding like that I was going to go and look for myself, and I ended up coming across the ancient pictographic language, and I started thinking, okay, this has to be the real thing. I wanted to go to the very bottom of where did this all start? So I started going down that, and then I met Chris Crutchfield, which I told you guys about in Discord. And him and I and his wife were chatting back and forth and stuff, and he was talking about the ancient language, and I was learning a lot of stuff, and then I found the Olive Branch, I don't Olive Branch Fellowship, whatever they call it, which is the Hebrew stuff, and I was convinced that this was the truth. Um, I guess I got ahead of myself because I got baptized in the Pentecostal church, but I had a meeting with the the pastor there before I got baptized, and my husband ended up coming in, and I told him straight up, I don't believe in like that his name is Jesus. I don't believe in the Pentecostals. I believe that, the original language. I went through the whole spiel of like what I was learning and everything else, and he said, you know what? Like this is coming from the pastor. He said, you know what? I feel the exact same way. Like you and I, he said, are like twins. I'm just like, okay. Um, he said, but my wife brought me to the Pentecostals, and this is where I'm doing pastoral or whatever. And I was blown away. But anyway, he agreed to baptize myself, and Nick decided he wanted to be baptized as well, so he was. And he did the same thing that you guys heard, where he says, I'll see you next Sunday or whatever. And it was like, no, because I already told him straight up. I was honest. I was like, I'm not coming to your church. I just want to be baptized so badly. And anyway, um, which probably was a huge disappointment to Paul's brother, you know. Um, but then I got right from there. I went right into the Hebrew stuff, and I like was so convinced. And I was teaching Belle. I was allowed to teach Belle. My daughter was allowing me to teach her. I was getting right into, showing her all the names and all the stuff, and she was learning so much, and I was learning so much, and I was celebrating all. Nick and I were actually doing. Paul wasn't involved. He wasn't upset that I was doing it. He wasn't going against. He wanted me to do whatever it took to, whatever would make me happy, basically. Um, and Nick was kind of going along with it. And so I would be celebrating the all the feast days. I did Passover. Nick and I did Passover. I was like going. I had all my doorways have like the Ten Commandments on them. I would hang the sort of pretend blood around the doors. I did Sukkot, where I slept out, or I set up the tent outside and spent my days outside and did all my stuff there by myself. The second year, I decided that I was going to go to Sukkot. I really badly wanted to go to Sukkot. Um, and I ended up traveling like 1,500 miles away, flying out west to Alberta to be with this group that I was involved with. And it wasn't until I was in the Sukkot, just something just didn't seem right. People were super, super nice. Something just didn't seem right. When I came home, I started going down the rabbit hole of Paul. When I found out that Paul was a liar, when I started reading even more and finding out all the lies and stuff that was going on in the Bible, I started to just I crashed again. I crashed. I felt like, yeah, Tim, yeah, they kind of felt like they were acting, you know, like it's, but I felt like I was crashing. Like I felt like I was being lied to again, and I couldn't take any more lies, and all I wanted was the truth, and I was like begging for the truth. I prayed straight, 3 weeks straight, please. I just want the truth. I don't want the world's truth. I want your truth. I said, I don't care what it takes. I don't care what cognitive dissonance it takes to break down in me. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care. I just want your truth. And it wasn't like a few days later, after that 3 weeks, I got an email. And in the email was Bobby Collier's video about Yahweh's character being different than the Father's. And in my spirit, I was told to watch the video, but don't watch anything else. Don't watch any of his other stuff. So I listened to it. I watched that one video. The next day, I got another email, and it was for Artist's YouTube channel. And I binged every video. I was like, I couldn't get enough, and I just kept praying. And I still pray to this day, every night. If we're on the wrong track, please put us on the right track. All I want is your truth. I don't want to follow people. I don't want to follow some doctrine, another lie, another, you know. And he just kept leading me. And even when Sally and I first came to this group, there was so much chaos. People were fighting in here. It was awful. And we didn't even realize what was going on. And I guess Sally knew a little bit, maybe because she knew some of the people prior, but I didn't know anything was going on. I was just like floored. I was just so happy to be in the group and so happy to find this truth and so happy, you know. But it got to a point that it got so stressful that I was thinking seriously about walking away from this group, because it was just like, I don't want to be in a group. Like I've never been in groups in my life, guys. Nothing. Zero. Zero, zero, zero. And I was like, I just don't want to be involved with people that are going to fight. And everything in my spirit again said, stay put. Stay put. You're in the right place. Don't go anywhere. And so I did. I've been sticking it out. And I have seen, like, it's such a loving group. I just know that we're on the right track. We may not have every answer, but I absolutely see that, like Sally, I have had nothing but peace. And all the fears of all my life, of all the stuff I feared in my whole life. I used to fear death. I feared I feared everything. I was so afraid. I'm down to zero fears, guys. I don't have a fear. I don't have apron strings of somebody, because I was always so attached to people's emotions. Like all the people of my family, I love them so much. I was attached. I was always helping them do stuff, and if they needed money, giving them money. I was just so attached. Like it was like if they hurt, I hurt, and I just wanted to heal it, and I just wanted to fix it, and I spent my life being a fixer. When they finally said to me they wanted me to stop, they did not want me in their lives. They literally came out and said the words. I said okay. And that's the friends that I lost. That's, family that I lost. I said okay. And I have not had an unpeaceful moment since. I have no fears. I have no one, like, if something is going on in my life that's like looks like it's going to be a little chaotic, it doesn't come over me. Like right now we're dealing with some family issues after Paul's mom died. And he's the rock. And when I see him down, that does get me upset. But at the same time, I can be the rock now and say, don't let it get to you. It doesn't matter. That's there's a big difference in how I feel, who I am. I missed telling you guys, because some of you know, but some of you don't. In 2020, the very first prayer I said to the Father was, because I never wanted to swear in the first place, I said, I prayed so hard that I wanted to quit swearing so bad. And it has to be like deep in your heart that you just don't want to do this anymore. And I mean, I'm telling you, I was worse than a trucker. I was like, the words I said hurt. The only words my mother ever said were swear words. And I used to say she had her own language. And I was just as bad. you know, and I hated it every time I swore. And if somebody said something to me about swearing, I would swear worse. In 2020, I prayed so hard, like, I do not want to swear anymore. And instantly, guys, and I mean instantly, I tried so many times to quit swearing, but instantly, I quit swearing, and I've never looked back. And even when I read something and it's got a curse word in it, my brain skips over it. And if somebody curses in front of me, it hurts me. I don't want to hear it, you know. Um, it's maybe I'm worse than an ex-smoker. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it. You know, Nick will swear sometimes, and I'll say Nick, but he doesn't anymore. He doesn't do it anymore around me. He's very kind and knows that how much it hurts me now, and he knows how hard I tried to quit smoking, and the Father quit me cold turkey. And I know he's with me. I know he's there. Like, anyway, that's pretty much it. There's a ton more, but I mean, you don't need every detail. Trust me, there's a ton more. That was my life, guys.
Thank you for sharing with us too.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
sure.
Lynn, that was that was pretty traumatic, but you're a survivor.
I am a
Yeah.
survivor. Thank you. I am.
Father had you the whole time. He led you through all of that, just to lead you here.
Yeah. I believe that, guys. I believe we're all here for the same
I do
reason.
too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say from what it sounded like, it sounded like you were traumatized and
We
you
were all traumatized. Yeah.
kind of you were protecting you and your siblings growing up
Mhm.
from and even your mom because you said at first she was getting abused right in front of you.
Yeah.
So I can see why you were scared and shy, growing up, and you probably felt I know you felt rejected the whole way.
Yes, I've felt that my whole life.
Yeah, on the outside looking in, kind of feeling like
Yeah.
yeah, and that's a tough place to be.
Mhm.
Right there outside the glass with your hand on it, and no one even noticed you. You
Yeah.
know.
But in 2020, guys, I felt so different. I felt like, wow, this is all real. You know, I knew the Bible was real. I knew everything was real. I knew that there was Satan. I knew that, it all started to click, and it just made me feel like, wow, I am definitely here for a reason, where I didn't up to that point.
But seriously, I believe that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think society like Yahweh, they make you feel inadequate. They'll tell you this is what a perfect life is. Like, they tell women today, you shouldn't try to have children until your career is established and you're about 40 to where it's almost impossible for you to have children.
Yeah.
And it's
Right.
like,
Control the
these are
narrative.
unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of flowers, they're not grown in traditional places. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
It would be nice if we had a good environment, but some flowers grow in the concrete jungle, you know, and where Satan don't expect them to, and he just can't stop life from just growing, from happening still, from good coming out of his terrible situations, you know. He didn't give us no potting soil, he didn't give us no topsoil, he didn't give us no nutrients, but we still grew.
That's right.
But yeah, you realize, and I think the reason why it you felt so hurt because you said there was one point where you said you realized that you was even letting yourself down. You wasn't even living up to your own expectations,
Exactly.
and you realized that you was as hard on yourself as you were on others.
Mhm.
You know, and I think that I don't call me wrong if I'm wrong, but I think that the solution to this was to, and I think it echoes what Jesus would say, but to not judge others. Not saying that you were so judgmental in a negative way, but
Yeah.
as you can see, even in those little ways,
Yep.
it can come back and hurt us. Like make us, when we look in the mirror, like, dang,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's why I can, like I say today, I can put myself in all the shoes of, anyone. Like, I can see how everybody, like, I always look at them like children. Like, how did you get this way? Like, even if you don't know their story, even if you don't get told, you can still say, I wonder what happened to them when they were little. Something happened. People don't just be this way unless, something happens, unless they're truly evil, which I think there are those too. But I think most people are just so traumatized and hurt, and you know.
There's a guy that comes into my job, and he basically grow a bunch of plants for a living, and they do studies and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And he can tell you that, like, oh, he see a plant with a little bit of yellow on the leaves and stuff like that, or whatever, and he'll tell you, oh, this plant right here, it didn't have enough water growing up, you know, something like that. And I think that's the case with us too. When we should see that in each other.
Yeah.
Like when we see people lashing out or behaving a certain way, I think we should try to see it like that. How that guy sees the plants.
I think this is exactly why Jesus said you got to love everyone, because Yahweh wants to hurt everyone. And even people who don't realize that they've been traumatized, and they're behaving poorly, they don't have a clue. Those people have been hurt. They don't even know what they're doing. And that's what
Yep.
Jesus is saying. Like, they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, Lynn. If you hurt me, and I use that as an excuse to hurt someone else, the cycle doesn't end.
That's right.
Someone got to choose to love
Yeah.
somebody.
Well, Nick said something the other day, and I do realize it's a saying that people say, but I had never heard it before. But he said, "An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind."
Oh wow,
And I was
that's
like, "Wow." Now,
that's pretty profound.
I know, I
That
know,
is good.
and I was like,
Yeah.
"Wow." So,
I like that.
yeah,
All right, Tim, you're up,
yeah,
brother.
Tim, it's your
Oh
You're
my
not
turn.
God.
getting out of
I
this
don't know,
now.
guys. We don't have time,
Yes,
guys.
we
We
do.
just
You
Yeah,
have
we
to do it. Go, Tim. Go, Tim.
Go.
do. Well, no, there was two
And they're
more
better.
points I wanted to bring up. What happened, Shannon?
There better be a fall in there somewhere.
There is. I might have two. Yeah.
Hey guys, I just want to interrupt for 1 second and just let you know that there's 256 eyes watching.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
so,
great.
yeah. Okay, I'm going to let you go ahead,
No
Tim.
pressure then. No pressure, Tim. You got 256 people listening to you.
And
I'm
a
imagining
thousand.
all of y'all in your underwear.
Yeah. Go for it.
But no, there was another point. I just wanted to bring up how it's something you said that made me write down. Um, Satan set. You know how Satan set Job up just to accuse him. And I felt, oh yeah, you were talking about your mom. You know, I forgot what part it was, but I kind of felt like that kind of happened to you as well. Like, just kind of set you up, and no matter what you can do, you do wrong.
Yeah.
But let me see. It was one more thing I wrote down too, and I can barely understand my own handwriting. That's crazy. Oh, okay. It was harder for you to have kids than your sisters, and I
Well,
can imagine what
it
that made
wasn't,
you.
it wasn't, it wasn't, it wasn't. It was just that, you know, once I decided to have children, and it didn't happen instantly. Like my siblings would have babies, like, they blink and they have babies. Um, and because it took me a few months, like I don't know how many months, but it took me, a few months. Like I thought that there was, I'm never gonna have children. I mean, I was just afraid of everything, and I just always, I was looking at the worst of everything, and I was just angry. I just had a lot of stuff going on, so, you know.
And I was gonna say I thought maybe you felt like things just come easy for others and stuff like that.
Well, I
Because I kind of
did.
always felt like that too.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I did ask that question a lot. Why me? Why, I'm the one trying to be good. Why is this all happening to me? But I learned through my life and through all these experiences that they all went through stuff. So why any of us? Why do any of us have to go
Oh
through
yeah, that's
this?
definitely something I had to learn. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had learned that on my walk.
Yeah.
Mine is all surrounded by uh, at least my walk, especially faith wise. I think it linked with my personal life because it was all surrounded by love, really.
Yeah.
My mom, she was a single mom of 5 kids, and she would have boyfriends and stuff like that. Not like she had like a whole bunch where it was like, oh my goodness. I didn't have any traumatizing things like you guys. You know, I had a mama that cared for me. Um, she made mistakes. I understood them. Fortunately, it didn't take me long to start understanding them. I hope you guys can hear me too, because I think my phone is doing that thing to where I can't hear anything at all
We can
We
hear
can
you.
for a
hear
good
we can
10
hear you.
seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the worst thing I've had was just that I didn't have a dad since I was born. That's all that is. And people had it plenty worse than me. I see people with they're missing limbs, and that alone is like, dang. I'm not saying I want to give my left arm for my dad or something, but that's just a lot, to live with every day. But and it also links into what I saw my mom go through, because as a child, I would see her cry over people, over men, but it's not really men, but she's crying over love, and and how she can't obtain the family that she so desired. And I was the type of son to sit by her bed and be there for her, like while she's. It's not like and again, it's not like I had to watch my mom cry every day or something like, or every night, or every year. It's probably maybe 2 or 3 times in my life growing up where I had to be by my mom's side while she cried, and let her be vulnerable around me. And I fully understood what my mom was crying over. Well, I thought I fully understood, but as I got older and I started getting in relationships myself, I started realizing what my mom was crying over, like even more uh, in detail. And I didn't really think about God really at these points in my life. My mom made us go to church growing up, but as soon as we got to a point where we could decide for ourselves, I would say maybe 14, 15ish. We didn't really go much, and we still didn't even go every time. Before then. But we said grace at the table when we ate together. My mom did everything she could. She really did. It's hard to do those things and try to keep that type of organization. But she made sure we had structure as a single mom, and I applaud her for that. Mama, if you're listening, I love you. but but yeah, so as my life was going on and I started getting into these relationships, here and there, I realized, I mean, love is always something I wanted. It's even as a kid, the whole idea of it, I thought it was beautiful. I always thought that I'll find a beautiful woman, I'll marry her, we'll have beautiful children. I thought I'd have headaches and stuff like everybody else, ups and downs. But I thought I'll just fall in that boat somewhere, you know. Um, but it always seemed like people didn't have the same type of love for me that I had for them. My type of love, even though I wasn't able to explain it at the time, it was duty. I always understood that. I always have. I really did. But not getting it in return, I was always honest with myself that this is it's not the same. It's not the real deal. I was still waiting for my dreams to come true. So that affected my decision making in religion too. That helped me see those relationships were not authentic as well. You know, I've called out for Jesus. I've called out and cried out because I've lost someone that I loved. You know, and a lot of times I felt ignored. In fact, all the time I felt ignored. The only time I didn't feel ignored when my mom was going through cancer, and I was in that room with her because we had just fought, and that's when she found out and got diagnosed after our fight, and I said terrible things to her. And so like the first time I saw her since then, she was in the hospital room, and all I could do was look outside the mirror. Couldn't even look in the eye. Look outside the window. Excuse me, and just tell her, don't die. That's it. That's all I can do. And all I can do is cry. Just tell her don't die. This boohoo crying in front of her boyfriend, who's my sister's dad. But me and my little brother was really close, and we used to walk together everywhere we went. And I was too much of a realist, I would say. I was so real that I would tell him, don't fall for that religious stuff. All those people are fake. They're all pretending, you know. And I would just tell him to stay away from that and to lead him away from it. And then now looking back, when I became a Christian, and I remember Jesus' words saying, "Those who offend the little ones and lead them astray, it's better that a millstone be tied about their neck and thrown into the ocean or into the sea." So it's like I almost made it my mission. This is like a year or two before 2020 when I started waking up, um, and started, believing in the flat Earth and believing in God, Yahweh, God. And I was like, I had to make it my mission to convince him, and not just him, but the woman I was with as well, because she wasn't religious at all, and she hated God. And I didn't care when I got with her, but at that time I felt like my eyes were being open to it while we were together. And the only reason I was with her is because she actually showed me the type of love that I always gave my whole life, except I was too broken to give it to her. I was just ending a relationship where shamefully, I cheated. Um, a couple times. And when she would find out, when she found out the last time, I broke it off because I loved her truly. And when people cheat, it don't mean they don't love. Because I loved her and I didn't want to do her like that anymore. But I knew I wasn't getting what I wanted. She wasn't dutiful. I was the type that I will walk. I will walk and walk. Blocks and blocks, miles, whatever, to go get her that Chinese food that she wanted because we didn't have a car. Just to see a smile on her face, just to be dutiful towards her. I would do things for her family and go out of my way to get their approval, to show them that, hey, not only do I love your daughter, but I love you too. And anything that's mine is all of yours. But I didn't get that in return for the smallest things that I asked for in return. Like sometimes when we did have a car, come with me on those fast food trips, you know? So our relationship was falling apart just off of that. This is before I was very religious. And this is how I got with the one I'm with, the one I was with at the time that in the story before I backtracked here. And when I was waking up, because that woman, right after that relationship, I she was dutiful already, just off the bat. She was infatuated. She wanted to be where I was. She didn't use anything as an excuse not to see me, but in fact, hey, can I bring my dogs? You know what I'm saying? And I saw that in her, and when she gave, we were just kind of hooking up, but when she gave me an ultimatum that I need to be her boyfriend, I was still very much in love with my ex. I just didn't want to do her wrong anymore, and I made that clear. But she still gave me that ultimatum, and she was treating me so well that I just wanted to do her right, and you know, so I just said I gave in. And I didn't really do her right at the time in the beginning either because my heart wasn't with her. It was still with my ex. But again, the love that she showed me, she won me over, and I ended up loving her more than anybody I ever have. But that all was taken away from me when I started believing in God. Our relationship started failing. My brother did not believe me. He still doesn't, at least to my knowledge, to this day. And he doesn't let it affect our friendship though. I'm proud of him for that. Steven, if you're listening, I love you. Uh, But yes, our relationship started to fail, and we, one day she said "F God," and spiritually, even though we didn't break up immediately after that, it was like the final straw for me. And I stood up for this God, for Yahweh, and I regret it so much right now. I'm sorry, guys. Whew. I thought I was doing everything right. I thought I was standing up for what was right. It made me question what was right. I cried out to God. I cried out to death. Death gave me no answer. He was silent. He was cold. Everything I wasn't. We don't belong together. So I broke up with death. Broke up with God. Started relationship with life. Life never lied to me. Everything life says is true. Life is love. Love is life. Life is life is duty. Love is free will. Not forcing someone to believe in God. Not forcing someone to believe the earth is flat. All I had to do is do right. I hear everybody had their testimonies. And they still have relationships sometimes. Some don't. And I feel for you. But some people are in these relationships even though their partner don't believe. I thought it was a curse at one time. It's a blessing. Just keep doing right. It was an Israelite man that told me about life. And then I met artists because even though I believed it, I was ascribing that to death still. Someone that was still doing those actions. But I met artists and it was groundbreaking. Everything started clicking. Okay. Yahweh is death. Yahweh is the devil. Yahweh is evil. Okay. It is about the character. Life never lied to me. I just didn't understand yet. It's his character, his nature, his essence. I got it now. And now I give it to people, hoping in return to get it back. But I want to thank artists. So, it's hard for me sometimes to deal with someone That's that's going away. I didn't do a good job of it with my cousin. He looked dead at me in the hospital room when I came in because we were best friends, and I couldn't say anything. He couldn't speak, so he couldn't say anything. But I imagine if he could, he would say, "Where you been?" So when my uncle passed a little recently, I tried to be there, you know, and I'm just trying to correct the mistakes that I made in the past. Um, I don't even know where I'm going anymore. And I felt like that one time too with my religious walk. Like I didn't know where I was going. Like I was just floating on the raft, and I could feel some of the water underneath me seeping in through the cracks, and I just felt wet, and I could feel my head getting heavy because my hair is getting soaked in the water, and I have no idea which direction this thing is taking me. But I felt comfort when Jesus said, "That's how the spirit of truth is. You don't know which way you're going. You just going with it, baby." So even when I'm crying, even when I'm nervous, even when I'm being interrogated, I just stick with the truth. And it's always had my back. It never left me. It never lied to me. Thank y'all for listening to me. I said I wasn't going to cry. I was like, there's no way I'm going to say something that's going to make me cry. I'm too crafty with my words. I could dance around it.
There's nothing wrong with crying.
That's
It's
right.
it's a good release, you know. It's very I find it to be very therapeutic.
And it's beautiful to hear everybody's story and have others, have some hope that if they're going through a hard time, that they can make it as well.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Tim.
Yes.
No problem.
Yeah.
I
Thank you,
tried to
Tam.
run. I love you guys.
And yes, artist doesn't, feel she's done enough sometimes. And when I look at tonight, I already knew she's done enough, but when I look at tonight and the numbers of people that are listening and the people that are commenting in the comments, and just to hear all of our testimonies, I know that the Father's worked through her and He has shown us stuff through her that is amazing. And, you know, thank her so much and appreciate everything that she's done. And we love you so much, artist.
Definitely.
Yes. Amen.
I love you, artist. That's where I was going.
And, because our testimonies were long tonight and we didn't really have anybody else up here, I think we might do one more night of allowing other people to come and share. If they feel like if we can do that along with our um, other lives as well, and just add them on to the lives. Um, if that's all right with you guys.
Absolutely.
Definitely. That's
Yeah.
100%.
Because I'm sure there was a couple people that wanted on, but I mean, I wanted everybody to kind of know who we are, know how serious we are about this, and how much work we put into it. That it doesn't feel like work. It's just it's a love that we want to do this. It
Well,
wasn't.
I think we showed everybody our hearts tonight. We all got touched in our stories, you know.
Mhm.
And I hope everybody can see the genuine loving nature of all of us. Like we all make mistakes, we all make errors. You know, we might say something, do something, get upset, get angry, but we're all doing it with a genuine love of Father and a genuine love of helping others and getting this truth out, you know.
For sure. Exactly. Just know, guys, that Gullinev has been listening. Of course, she's not well enough to come on, but she's been listening. So, and she has commented and said um, the entire thing, so much love of the Father in every testimony. So just know she's heard it.
Oh, well, that's awesome. I'm glad she's well enough to listen and be able to
Yeah.
communicate with you. So,
So anyway, it's not that I mind the time of, that we've spent doing this, but I think that we'll close it with that if everybody is okay with that, and we will come back on Tuesday evening.
Awesome.
sounds good.
Yeah. Love you
Yeah.
guys.
Well,
Have a
thank
good
you,
night.
Shannon. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah.
Thank you, Aylin, for sharing
Yeah, absolutely. You're
Thank
all
so
you
your
as well.
welcome.
stories
Sally.
with me.
Yeah.
Love you all.
Love you all.
Love
Take
everybody in the
care.
chat. Maybe we'll talk tomorrow on Discord.
Yeah.
It's Saturday.
Yeah. It's
All right.
Saturday. Okay, night,
We're
Love
gonna
you
guys.
do
all.
another marathon chat on. It'll put this one to shame.
I
We
know,
usually
hey?
go like 8 or 9 hours.
I know. Sometimes, like, well, it was one day it was like 8 or 9 hours, and then the next day, right after, it was like another 6 hours. I was like, wow. Okay. Anyway, night, guys.
Good night,
Good
y'all.
night.
Love
Night.
y'all.
Love you all. Bye.
Bye.